Ambassador Stella's eyes dart downward again, fixating on the crotch of yet another human male passing through the United Nations lobby. Her gamelin sensory organs flare, detecting a potent cocktail of pheromones emanating from between his legs. She blinks rapidly, struggling to maintain her composure as wave after wave of unfamiliar chemical signals assaults her senses. Eugene Reyes, Earth's lead negotiator, notices Stella's erratic behavior from across the room. His stomach tightens with concern. Today's talks will determine humanity's place in the galactic community, and the alien ambassador's inability to maintain eye contact could spell disaster for Earth's admission to the Interstellar Alliance. As Stella approaches, Eugene steps forward to greet her. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador," he says, extending his hand. Stella's gaze snaps up to meet his, then immediately drops back down to his groin. Eugene feels a bead of sweat form on his brow. The pair walk towards the conference room, Stella's head swiveling to track every male delegate they pass. Eugene's mind races, searching for a diplomatic way to address the issue. He's acutely aware that the other human representatives are taking note of Stella's behavior, their expressions growing increasingly concerned. Inside the conference room, the situation deteriorates further. Stella takes her seat at the head of the table, but her eyes continually drift downward, scanning from one male delegate to the next. The humans shift uncomfortably in their chairs, interpreting her actions as a sign of disrespect or, worse, disgust. Eugene leans over to whisper to his aide, "We need to call a recess. Now." The aide nods and discreetly signals to the moderator. As the delegates file out for the break, Eugene approaches Stella. "Ambassador, may I have a word in private?" he asks, gesturing towards a small antechamber. Once alone, Eugene takes a deep breath. "I couldn't help but notice you seem distracted by something," he begins cautiously. Stella's sensory organs flutter. "I apologize, Negotiator Reyes. The pheromone signals from human males are overwhelming. On Gamelin, we communicate complex social and emotional information through such chemical signatures. Here, I'm receiving an abundance of unfamiliar cues." Eugene's eyes widen as understanding dawns. This isn't a sign of disrespect. It's a cultural misunderstanding that could have catastrophic consequences for Earth's future if left unaddressed. "Thank you for explaining, Ambassador," Eugene says, his mind already formulating a plan. "If you'll excuse me, I need to make some quick arrangements before we reconvene." Eugene hurries out, heading straight for the building's maintenance office. He has less than 15 minutes to modify the conference room's air filtration system, hoping to create a more neutral olfactory environment for the negotiations. As he works with the technicians to implement his solution, Eugene can't shake the knot of tension in his gut. The other human delegates are growing increasingly agitated, whispering among themselves about Stella's behavior. Some are already suggesting that the Gamelons view humanity as inferior, unworthy of joining the Interstellar Alliance. The fate of Earth's interstellar relations hangs in the balance as Eugene races against time. He knows that if he can't salvage this diplomatic mission, the consequences for humanity could be dire. With the modified air filtration system in place, he hurries back to the conference room, praying his improvised solution will be enough to prevent a potentially catastrophic misunderstanding between humans and Gamelons. Eugene raced back to the conference room, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and apprehension. As he entered, he caught Stella's eye and gave a subtle nod. The Gamelin ambassador's sensory organs fluttered in response, a gesture he interpreted as acknowledgement. The delegates settled into their seats, and Eugene held his breath as the talks resumed. To his immense relief, Stella's gaze remained steady, no longer darting from one male to another. The modified air filtration system had worked, creating a neutral olfactory environment that allowed the ambassador to focus on the diplomatic proceedings. As the negotiations progressed, Eugene noticed a marked change in the atmosphere. Stella articulated the Gamelin position with clarity and poise, her earlier distractions seemingly forgotten. The human delegates, initially tense and skeptical, began to engage more openly with her arguments. However, Eugene couldn't shake the feeling that damage had already been done. During a brief recess, he overheard whispered conversations among his colleagues, their words tinged with lingering doubt about Gamelin intentions. "Did you see how she was looking at us earlier?" One delegate murmured. "It was like we were specimens in a lab." "Maybe they don't think we're worthy after all," another responded, his voice tight with concern. Eugene opened his mouth to intervene, but before he could speak, the moderator called the session back to order. He returned to his seat, acutely aware of the fragile state of the negotiations. As the day wore on, Eugene found his attention increasingly drawn to Stella. He marveled at her ability to articulate complex interstellar policies, her iridescent skin shimmering under the conference room lights as she gestured emphatically. When she spoke, her melodious voice seemed to captivate the entire room. During a coffee break, Eugene found himself alone with Stella in a secluded courtyard. Marble fountains burbled softly, providing a soothing backdrop to their conversation. "I must thank you, Negotiator Reyes," Stella said, her large, almond-shaped eyes fixed on him. "Your intervention earlier was most helpful." Eugene felt a flush of warmth at her words. "I'm glad I could assist, Ambassador. I hope it's made things easier for you." Stella's sensory organs rippled, a movement Eugene was beginning to associate with amusement or approval. "Indeed it has. I confess, I was struggling to adapt to Earth's sensory landscape. It's quite different from Gamelin." As they continued to talk, Eugene found himself drawn into a fascinating discussion about Gamelin culture. Stella explained how their society valued problem-solving and adaptability, traits she had observed in abundance among humans, particularly in Eugene himself. "Your quick thinking today demonstrated a level of cultural sensitivity that is admirable," Stella said, stepping closer to him. Eugene caught a faint, sweet scent emanating from her, reminiscent of exotic flowers. He was about to respond when movement caught his eye. Ambassador Marcus Harding, a notoriously hardline human delegate, was watching them from a nearby balcony. Eugene's stomach tightened as Harding's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. As they returned to the conference room, Eugene tried to shake off his unease. He needed to focus on the task at hand, securing Earth's admission to the Interstellar Alliance. But as the afternoon session began, he sensed a shift in the dynamic. Harding, usually content to let others lead the discussion, began to interject more frequently. His questions seemed designed to undermine Eugene's authority, subtly questioning his objectivity. "Negotiator Reyes," Harding said, his voice smooth as silk but with an underlying edge, "you seem quite sympathetic to the Gamelin perspective. Are you certain you're representing Earth's best interests here?" Eugene felt a flash of anger, but kept his voice level as he responded. "Ambassador Harding, my duty is to facilitate understanding between our species. That requires a degree of empathy, but it doesn't compromise my commitment to Earth." As he spoke, Eugene's gaze inadvertently drifted to Stella. She was watching him intently, her head tilted slightly to one side. He thought he detected a flicker of something in her expression. Approval? Admiration? Before she quickly schooled her features back to diplomatic neutrality. The session concluded for the day, leaving Eugene with a sense of undetermination tension. As he gathered his notes, his comm unit buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. Lydia Bailey, Earth's leading xenobiologist. "Eugene, we need to talk," the message read. "Urgent concerns about prolonged exposure to Gamelin pheromones. Potential unforeseen effects on human physiology and psychology. Call me ASAP." Eugene stared at the screen, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. He looked up to see Stella across the room, engaged in conversation with another delegate. As if sensing his gaze, she turned and met his eyes, offering a small smile that sent an unexpected thrill through him. In that moment, Eugene realized he was standing at a crossroads. The growing connection he felt with Stella was undeniable, but pursuing it could jeopardize everything: the negotiations, his career, possibly even his own well-being. Yet the thought of distancing himself from her filled him with a profound sense of loss. As delegates filed out of the conference room, Eugene remained rooted to the spot, Dr. Bailey's warning echoing in his mind. The fate of Earth's admission to the Interstellar Alliance hung in the balance, and he knew that his next decision could tip the scales in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. Eugene stared at his comm unit, Dr. Bailey's message burning into his retinas. He glanced up at Stella, her iridescent skin catching the light as she conversed with another delegate. The cold feeling in his stomach intensified as he realized he couldn't ignore the potential consequences of their growing connection. With a deep breath, Eugene made his decision. He tapped out a quick response to Dr. Bailey, scheduling a meeting for first thing in the morning. As he pocketed his comm unit, he caught Stella's eye across the room. She offered him a small smile, and he felt his pulse quicken in response. Shaking his head to clear it, Eugene gathered his materials and left the conference room. The next morning, Eugene found himself in Dr. Bailey's lab, surrounded by an array of medical equipment. The xenobiologist's face was etched with concern as she explained the battery of tests they would run. "We need to understand exactly how prolonged exposure to gamelin pheromones is affecting you, Eugene," Dr. Bailey said, attaching sensors to his temples. "The implications could be far-reaching." Over the next few hours, Eugene underwent a series of scans and tests. Blood samples were taken, brain activity monitored, and hormone levels measured. As the final test concluded, Dr. Bailey's frown deepened as she studied the results on her tablet. "Eugene, I'm detecting subtle but significant changes in your hormone levels and neurochemical activity," she said, her voice taut with professional concern. "While these changes aren't immediately harmful, they could potentially affect your decision-making abilities and emotional responses over time." Eugene's mind raced, processing the implications of Dr. Bailey's words. "What does this mean for the negotiations?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Bailey's expression softened. "For now, we monitor the situation closely. I'll need you to check in regularly for further tests. In the meantime, try to limit your direct interactions with Ambassador Stella as much as possible." As Eugene left the lab, his thoughts in turmoil, he failed to notice the young man who had been loitering nearby, observing his movements with keen interest. Jake Foster, the junior diplomat assigned by Ambassador Harding to monitor Eugene, quickly tapped out a message on his comm unit. Subject underwent medical tests with Dr. Bailey. Appeared distressed upon leaving. Will continue surveillance. Over the next few days, Eugene struggled to maintain his composure during the negotiations. Every time Stella spoke, he found his attention drawn to the melodic cadence of her voice, the graceful gestures of her hands. During a crucial discussion on interstellar trade agreements, Eugene stumbled over his words, losing his train of thought mid-sentence. "Negotiator Reyes, are you feeling all right?" Ambassador Harding's voice cut through Eugene's fog, sharp with barely concealed suspicion. Eugene blinked, aware of the concerned and confused looks from the other delegates. "My apologies," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Where were we?" As the session concluded, Eugene felt a gentle touch on his arm. He turned to find Stella standing beside him, her large eyes filled with concern. "Negotiator Reyes, may I speak with you privately?" she asked, her voice low. Eugene hesitated, Dr. Bailey's warning echoing in his mind. But the pull he felt toward Stella was too strong to resist. He nodded, following her to a secluded corner of the conference room. "I sense a change in you," Stella said, her sensory organs fluttering. "I, too, am experiencing unfamiliar sensations in your presence." Eugene's breath caught in his throat as Stella continued, explaining the complex gamelin mating process and her belief that something similar might be occurring between them. This physiological synchronization, Eugene said, his voice hoarse. What does it mean for us? For the negotiations? Before Stella could respond, Eugene caught sight of movement from the corner of his eye. Jake Foster was watching them intently from across the room, his hand hovering over his comm unit. Stella followed Eugene's gaze, her posture stiffening as she noticed Jake. "We must be cautious," she whispered. "The implications of this bond could be far-reaching for both our species." As they parted ways, Eugene's mind whirled with the potential consequences of their developing connection. He knew he needed guidance, someone he could trust to help navigate this complex situation. With a sense of persistence, Eugene reached for his comm unit and composed a message to his mentor, Ambassador Sarah Linden. Urgent meeting needed. Diplomatic situation complicated by unexpected personal factors. Your advice crucial. As he sent the message, Eugene was unaware of the forces aligning against him. In his office, Ambassador Harding reviewed Jake's latest report, his expression hardening. Across the city, Dr. Bailey pored over Eugene's test results, her concern growing with each new data point. And in her quarters, Stella received an urgent communique from her superiors on Gamelin, instructing her to distance herself from Eugene for the sake of diplomatic neutrality. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the limits of interspecies understanding and potentially reshape the future of human-Gamelin relations. As Eugene prepared to meet with Ambassador Linden, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the precipice of something much larger than himself, with the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. As Eugene left Ambassador Linden's office, his mind raced with the weight of their conversation. "Remember, Eugene," Sarah's words echoed in his ears, "diplomacy is as much about understanding oneself as it is about understanding others. Be cautious, but don't lose sight of the potential here." With renewed persistence, Eugene strode through the United Nations building, intent on finding Stella. The corridors buzzed with activity, delegates from various species engaged in hushed conversations. As he rounded a corner, he caught sight of a familiar iridescent sheen. "Stella," he called out, quickening his pace. But before he could reach her, a hand grabbed his arm, yanking him back. Eugene spun around to find Jake Foster, his face set in a grim expression. "Negotiator Reyes," Jake said, his voice low and urgent, "I can't let you compromise these negotiations any further." Eugene tried to pull away, but Jake's grip tightened. "What are you talking about? Let go of me." Jake's eyes darted around the corridor. "Your judgment is compromised. We all see it. You need to step back before you ruin everything." Anger flared in Eugene's chest. He wrenched his arm free, shoving Jake back. "You have no right." Jake lunged forward, attempting to restrain Eugene. They grappled, their struggle drawing the attention of nearby delegates and security personnel. As they fell against the wall, Eugene's elbow struck Jake's chest, activating a hidden device. A high-pitched whine filled the air, followed by a burst of static. Alien voices crackled through the device, speaking in a language Eugene recognized as Gamelin. Jake's eyes widened in panic. He scrambled to silence the device, but it was too late. The damage was done. Security officers rushed in, separating the two men. The corridor erupted into chaos as delegates from both human and Gamelin factions converged on the scene. "What is the meaning of this?" Ambassador Harding's voice boomed over the commotion. He pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger. Stella appeared at the edge of the gathering, her large eyes taking in the scene with growing alarm. Eugene met her gaze, feeling a pull that transcended the chaos around them. He pushed past the security officers, ignoring their protests as he made his way to her. "Stella, I need to speak with you," he said, his voice urgent. As he approached, A wave of dizziness washed over him. Stella swayed, her sensory organs rippling with intensity. "Eugene," she whispered, reaching out to steady herself. The moment their hands touched, a jolt of energy surged between them. Eugene gasped, feeling as if every nerve in his body had come alive. Stella's skin began to pulse with a soft, ethereal light that spread to Eugene where their skin met. The crowd fell silent, all eyes fixed on the extraordinary sight before them. The glow intensified, enveloping both Eugene and Stella in a cocoon of shimmering light. Eugene's mind reeled as a flood of emotions and sensations washed over him. He could feel Stella's confusion, her fear, but also her deep fascination with humanity. In turn, he sensed her awareness of his own thoughts and feelings. "Incredible," Dr. Bailey's voice cut through the silence. She pushed her way through the crowd, her handheld scanner whirring as she took readings. "This is it, the empathic link I predicted. It's forming right before our eyes." Ambassador Harding stepped forward, his face a mask of fury. "This is outrageous. Negotiator Reyes, you are hereby relieved of your duties. Security, remove him at once." But as the security officers moved to comply, other human delegates began to protest. "Wait," called out Ambassador Chun of the Asian Coalition. "We can't ignore what we're seeing here. This could change everything." The Gamelin delegation, led by their chief diplomat, moved closer to Stella and Eugene. "We demand an explanation for this." "Phenomenon," the chief diplomat said, his voice a mix of awe and suspicion. As the glow began to fade, Eugene found his voice. "What you're seeing is the future of human-Gamelin relations," he said, his hand still clasped with Stella's. "This bond, this understanding, it's what we've been working towards all along." Stella nodded, her large eyes shimmering with emotion. "My people have long sought a way to truly connect with other species. This is beyond our wildest hopes." Dr. Bailey stepped forward, her scanner still active. "The neural patterns I'm detecting are extraordinary. This isn't just communication. It's a true melding of minds. The implications for interspecies understanding are staggering." Ambassador Linden pushed through the crowd, her expression calm but determined. "In light of these developments, I move that we call an immediate recess. Both delegations need time to consult with their governments and reassess our positions." The Gamelin chief diplomat nodded slowly. "Agreed, but Negotiator Reyes and Ambassador Stella must remain under observation. We need to understand exactly what has transpired here." As the crowd began to disperse, Eugene felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. He and Stella were quickly ushered away by a joint team of human and Gamelin scientists, Dr. Bailey at the lead. In the wake of their departure, the corridor buzzed with excitement and trepidation. Delegates huddled in small groups, their voices a mix of hopeful whispers and concerned murmurs. Ambassador Harding stood alone, his plans in tatters. He watched as Jake Foster was led away by security, the hidden communication device now exposed for all to see. As Eugene and Stella were escorted to a secure research facility, their hands remained intertwined. The physical contact seemed to stabilize the empathic link between them, allowing a continuous flow of thoughts and emotions. "What happens now?" Stella's voice echoed in Eugene's mind. He squeezed her hand gently, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "I don't know," he thought back. "But whatever comes next, we face it together." The doors of the research facility slid open, revealing a room filled with advanced medical equipment. As they stepped inside, Eugene and Stella knew that their lives and the future of human-Gamelin relations would never be the same. As the doors closed behind them, Eugene felt a sudden surge of anxiety, not just his own, but Stella's as well. Dr. Bailey wasted no time, directing them to separate examination tables. "We need to run some tests to understand what's happening," she explained, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. As Eugene reluctantly let go of Stella's hand, the connection between them wavered but didn't break entirely. He could still sense her presence in his mind, a comforting warmth amidst the clinical chill of the lab. "I'm going to attach these sensors to your temples," Dr. Bailey said, approaching Eugene with a handful of small, adhesive pads. "They'll help us monitor your neural activity." Eugene nodded, his eyes never leaving Stella as she underwent a similar procedure on the other side of the room. He watched as her iridescent skin shimmered under the harsh laboratory lights, her large eyes blinking rapidly as she took in her surroundings. "How are you feeling?" he asked silently, projecting his thoughts towards her. Stella's response came as a flutter of emotions rather than words. Curiosity, apprehension, and an undercurrent of excitement. Eugene found himself marveling at the complexity of her feelings, so alien yet oddly familiar. As the test progressed, the lab became a flurry of activity. Researchers bustled about, comparing readings and exchanging theories in hushed tones. Eugene caught snippets of their conversations, phrases like neural synchronization and pheromone compatibility that meant little to him but seemed to excite the scientists immensely. Dr. Bailey's eyes widened as she studied a holographic display of their brain scans. "This is extraordinary," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "The level of synchronization between your neural patterns is unlike anything I've ever seen." Eugene was about to ask for clarification when a commotion outside the lab caught his attention. Through the glass doors, he could see a group of delegates gathered in the hallway, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Ambassador Linden's voice cut through the din. "We need to call a recess and inform our respective governments," she was saying, her tone firm but measured. "This development could change everything." As if on cue, Eugene's comm unit buzzed with an incoming message. It was from the UN Secretary-General herself, requesting an immediate briefing on the situation. Before Eugene could respond, Dr. Bailey approached him, her expression grave. "There's something you both need to know," she said, glancing between Eugene and Stella. "The bond between you. It's intensifying rapidly. If it continues at this rate, there's a possibility that your minds could become permanently linked." Eugene felt a jolt of shock, both his own and Stella's. The implications of Dr. Bailey's words were staggering. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could form a response, the lab door slid open. A tall, imposing gamelan strode into the room, flanked by a retinue of both human and gamelan officials. His skin was a deeper shade of blue than Stella's, marked with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "I am Zoran," he announced, his voice resonating with authority. "Senior diplomat of the Gamelan High Council. I have been sent to assess this unexpected situation." Eugene felt Stella's surprise and a hint of trepidation at Zoran's arrival. He instinctively moved closer to her, ignoring Dr. Bailey's warning look. Zoran's eyes narrowed as he observed their interaction. "I will need to see a demonstration of this bond," he declared. "The High Council requires proof before we can determine our next course of action." As Zoran spoke, Eugene became aware of a growing commotion outside the building. Through the lab's windows, he could see a crowd gathering in the plaza below, their angry shouts barely muffled by the thick glass. Ambassador Linden hurried into the lab, her face flushed. "We have a situation," she announced. "A group of extremists is protesting outside. They're demanding an end to all alien influence on Earth." Eugene felt a surge of drive, both his own and Stella's. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the chaos swirled around them, Eugene reached out and took Stella's hand once more, their fingers intertwining as the bond between them pulsed with renewed strength. The lab erupted into a flurry of activity as security personnel rushed to secure the building, and scientists scrambled to prepare for Zoran's requested demonstration. In the midst of it all, Eugene and Stella stood united, their joined hands a silent testament to the unprecedented connection between their two species. Species. The lab doors hissed open once more, revealing a team of security personnel. "We need to move you to a more secure location," one of them announced, his voice tense. "The situation outside is escalating." Eugene and Stella exchanged a glance, their shared concern palpable through their bond. As they were escorted out of the lab, Eugene caught a glimpse of the plaza through a nearby window. The crowd had swelled, their angry chants now clearly audible even through the thick glass. "This way," Dr. Bailey urged, leading them down a series of corridors. They arrived at a specially prepared room, its walls lined with an array of monitoring equipment. "We'll conduct the demonstration here," she explained, gesturing for Eugene and Stella to take seats in the center of the room. As they settled in, Eugene felt a sudden rush of unfamiliar memories flooding his mind. He saw vast, shimmering cities on Gamelin, their architecture unlike anything on Earth. He experienced the sensation of floating in a zero-gravity nursery, surrounded by other infant Gamelons. "Stella," he gasped, "I can see. I can feel your childhood." Stella's eyes widened, her sensory organs rippling with intensity. "And I'm seeing your life on Earth," she whispered. "Your first day of school, your family." Dr. Bailey leaned in, her scanner whirring. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The neural synchronization is progressing at an unprecedented rate." As Eugene and Stella continued to exchange memories, the door opened to admit a new figure. A man of Japanese descent entered, his eyes sharp behind round glasses. "Dr. Akira Tanaka," he introduced himself, bowing slightly. "I've been called in to assess the long-term implications of your bond." While Dr. Tanaka began his examination, Ambassador Linden entered the room, her face drawn with worry. "The extremist group outside is growing more volatile," she reported. "We've had to call in additional security." Eugene felt a surge of anxiety from Stella, mingling with his own concern. He reached out to take her hand, the physical contact seeming to stabilize their connection. As the hours passed, Eugene became aware of subtle changes in his body. His skin began to take on a faint iridescent sheen, reminiscent of Stella's. Glancing at Stella, he noticed her features softening, becoming more human-like. Dr. Tanaka's expression grew grave as he studied his readings. "The bonding process is accelerating exponentially," he announced. "At this rate, their minds could completely merge within hours." The room erupted into a flurry of activity at this news. Ambassador Linden stepped forward, her voice urgent. "What are the implications of this?" Dr. Tanaka shook his head. "We're in uncharted territory. The merged consciousness might be neither fully human nor fully Gamelin. The ethical implications are staggering." As the scientists and officials debated, Eugene turned to Stella. Through their bond, he could feel her fear, her uncertainty, but also a deep, growing affection. "What's happening to us?" Stella's voice echoed in his mind. "I don't know," Eugene thought back. "But whatever comes, we're in this together." Their silent exchange was interrupted by the arrival of Zoran, the senior Gamelin diplomat. His eyes narrowed as he took in Eugene and Stella's changed appearances. "The High Council demands genetic samples," Zoran announced, his tone conflicted. "They believe this bonding process could have military applications." Eugene felt a wave of revulsion from Stella at the idea. He shared her sentiment, the thought of their connection being weaponized deeply disturbing. Before anyone could respond to Zoran's demand, a new voice cut through the tension. "We cannot allow this bond to be exploited," declared a woman Eugene didn't recognize. "I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, bioethicist." This connection between Eugene and Stella represents a unique opportunity for interspecies understanding. We must protect it. As debate raged around them, Eugene and Stella remained at the center, their hands clasped tightly. Through their deepening bond, they shared not just memories now, but hopes, fears, and a growing sense of unity. Yet even as their connection strengthened, Eugene felt a twinge of fear. Where did Eugene Reyes end and Stella begin? Would they lose themselves entirely in this merge? Ambassador Linden's voice cut through the din. "We're out of time," she announced. "The demonstration is scheduled to begin in 1 hour, and the crowd outside is growing restless. We need to make a decision." As all eyes turned to Eugene and Stella, they knew that the next few moments would shape not just their futures, but the future of human-gamelin relations. The weight of two worlds rested on their joined hands, their merged minds, and the unprecedented bond that tied them together. The weight of two worlds rested on their joined hands, their merged minds, and the unprecedented bond that tied them. As Eugene and Stella faced the uncertain future together, they were ushered out of the room and towards their next challenge. The corridors of the United Nations building bustled with activity as Eugene and Stella were escorted to the General Assembly Hall. Security personnel flanked them on all sides, their vigilant eyes scanning for any potential threats. Eugene could feel Stella's nervousness pulsing through their bond, mingling with his own apprehension. "It's going to be okay," he thought to her, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. As they approached the entrance to the hall, Ambassador Linden briefed them one last time. "Remember, this demonstration is crucial for the future of human-gamelin relations. Just be yourselves and let your connection speak for itself." The massive doors swung open, revealing the cavernous General Assembly Hall. Hundreds of delegates from around the world and beyond filled the tiered seating, their murmurs falling to a hush as Eugene and Stella entered. At the center of the room stood a raised platform, surrounded by an array of sophisticated monitoring equipment. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka were already there, making final adjustments to their devices. As Eugene and Stella took their positions on the platform, Dr. Bailey attached a series of small, translucent sensors to their temples and wrists. "These will allow us to broadcast your neural synchronization data in real time," she explained, her voice low and focused. Eugene nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd. He spotted Zoran in the front row, the Gamelin diplomat's expression unreadable. Nearby, a group of human officials whispered among themselves, occasionally casting furtive glances towards the platform. Ambassador Linden stepped up to the podium, her voice echoing through the hall as she began her opening remarks. "Distinguished delegates, esteemed guests, we are gathered here today to witness a truly unprecedented event in the history of interspecies relations." As she spoke, Eugene became acutely aware of the changes in his body. His skin tingled with a faint, iridescent sheen, visible even under the harsh lights of the hall. Glancing at Stella, he noticed the subtle shifts in her features, the alien angles of her face softening into something more human-like. Their eyes met, and in that moment, their connection surged. Eugene felt a rush of memories, emotions, and sensations that were not his own flooding his consciousness. He saw glimpses of Stella's homeworld, felt the joy of her first space flight, tasted the strange, tangy fruits of Gamelin orchards. As their joined hands began to emit a soft, pulsating glow, gasps rippled through the audience. Holographic projections materialized around them, vivid images of Earth's lush forests and Gamelin's crystalline cities intermingling in a breathtaking display. "Remarkable," Dr. Tanaka murmured, his eyes fixed on his monitoring equipment. "The neural synchronization is off the charts." Suddenly, a piercing whine cut through the air. Eugene winced, feeling a sharp pain lance through his skull. Beside him, Stella let out a small cry of distress. The holographic images flickered and distorted, their movements becoming erratic. "Something's wrong," Dr. Bailey shouted, her fingers flying over her control panel. "There's an external interference." As security personnel began to sweep the room, Eugene fought to maintain his focus. Through their bond, he could feel Stella's tenacity matching his own. Together, they pushed back against the disruptive force, their shared consciousness becoming a shield against the assault. The glow surrounding them intensified, burning brighter with each passing second. The holographic projection stabilized, growing more vivid and detailed. Now, alongside the landscapes, scenes of cultural significance from both worlds appeared, ancient Earth ceremonies juxtaposed with futuristic Gamelin rituals. In the front row, Zoran stood abruptly, his face a mask of awe and purpose. "This connection must be protected," he declared, his voice carrying across the hall. "I pledge the full support of the Gamelin people to further this research." As security closed in on a group of suspicious individuals near the back of the hall, the piercing whine suddenly cut off. Eugene felt the pressure in his head release, but the connection with Stella remained stronger than ever. Without conscious thought, Eugene found himself speaking, his voice intertwining with Stella's in perfect harmony. They alternated between Earth languages and the complex tones of the Gamelin tongue, translating abstract concepts with effortless fluidity. "We are two, yet we are one," they intoned, their voices resonating through the hall. "Through us, our peoples can truly understand one another, bridging the vast gulf between our worlds." The assembled delegates sat in stunned silence, many with tears in their eyes at the display of profound understanding between species. Dr. Rodriguez, the bioethicist, stepped forward, her voice filled with passion. "We must seize this opportunity," she urged. "I call for an immediate vote on continuing this research and fast-tracking Earth's admission to the Interstellar Alliance." As the delegates began to cast their votes, Eugene felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The strain of maintaining such an intense connection was taking its toll. He saw his own fatigue mirrored in Stella's eyes, her normally vibrant skin taking on a pale, almost translucent quality. Just as Ambassador Linden announced the successful result of the vote, Eugene felt his knees buckle. He and Stella collapsed onto the platform, their bodies still entwined and glowing. The last thing Eugene saw before darkness claimed him was Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka rushing towards them, concern etched on their faces. In the chaos that followed, Eugene drifted in and out of consciousness. He was vaguely aware of being lifted onto a stretcher, of urgent voices, and the whir of medical equipment. Through it all, he clung to Stella's presence in his mind, a lifeline in the sea of confusion. As they were rushed out of the General Assembly Hall and towards awaiting medical transport, Eugene heard Ambassador Linden addressing the crowd outside. Her words were muffled, but the mixed reactions of cheers and protests told their own story. Inside the transport, Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka worked feverishly, their expressions grim as they monitored Eugene and Stella's vital signs. "Their hearts are beating in perfect synchronization," Dr. Tanaka muttered, his brow furrowed. "I've never seen anything like this." As the transport sped towards a secure medical facility, Eugene felt himself slipping deeper into unconsciousness. His last coherent thought was of Stella and the uncertain future that lay ahead of them. Whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together, two minds, two species united as one. One. The darkness that had enveloped Eugene began to lift, replaced by a haze of disorienting lights and muffled sounds. He blinked, trying to focus on his surroundings. The stark white walls and beeping monitors told him he was in some kind of medical facility. Beside him, Stella stirred, her eyes fluttering open in perfect synchronization with his own. Their hands remained clasped, the soft glow between them pulsing gently. Eugene felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing she was still there, still connected. Dr. Bailey's face swam into view, her brow furrowed with concern. "Eugene, Stella, can you hear me?" Eugene tried to speak, but his throat felt dry and raw. He managed a weak nod, feeling Stella do the same beside him. "You're in a secure medical facility within the UN complex," Dr. Bailey explained, her voice calm but tinged with urgency. "We've been monitoring your condition closely. There have been some unexpected developments." As if on cue, Eugene became aware of subtle changes in his body. His skin tingled with an unfamiliar sensation, and when he glanced down, he saw that the iridescent sheen had intensified, now shimmering with an almost metallic quality. Dr. Tanaka approached, his eyes fixed on a holographic display hovering above a nearby console. "The cellular transformation is progressing at an unprecedented rate," he murmured, more to himself than to the others in the room. "The genetic recombination is unlike anything we've ever seen." Eugene turned to look at Stella, his breath catching in his throat. Her features had softened further, the alien angles of her face now blending seamlessly with unmistakably human characteristics. Her eyes, still that mesmerizing shade of violet, widened as she took in his changed appearance. "What's happening to us?" Stella's voice echoed in Eugene's mind, a mix of awe and trepidation coloring her thoughts. Before Eugene could respond, a commotion outside the room caught their attention. Through the glass wall, they could see Ambassador Linden engaged in a heated discussion with a group of officials, including the stern-faced Ambassador Harding and the Gamelin diplomat Zoran. Dr. Rodriguez, the bioethicist, broke away from the group and entered the room, her expression a mix of concern and fascination. "How are you both feeling?" she asked, approaching the bed cautiously. Eugene opened his mouth to respond, but instead of words, a strange, melodic sound emerged. It was neither human speech nor Gamelin dialect, but somehow a perfect blend of both. Stella joined in, their voices intertwining in a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the hybrid pair. Dr. Bailey fumbled with her equipment, trying to capture readings of the phenomenon. "This is extraordinary," she breathed. "They've developed an entirely new form of communication." Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, growing in intensity. The medical monitors began to flicker and spark, their screens distorting with static. Eugene felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, emanating from the point where his hand joined Stella's. "Energy levels are spiking," Dr. Tanaka shouted, his fingers flying over his console. "We need to contain this before." His words were cut off as a pulse of energy burst from Eugene and Stella, washing over the room in a wave of shimmering light. The monitors exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging the room into darkness save for the ethereal glow surrounding the hybrid pair. In the chaos that followed, Eugene felt a strange calm settle over him. He sat up, moving in perfect unison with Stella. Their eyes met, and in that moment he understood. They were no longer just Eugene and Stella, but something new, something that bridged the gap between their species in ways no one could have imagined. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw the stunned faces of the humans and Gamelons around them. Ambassador Linden pushed her way into the room, her voice cutting through the confusion. "Eugene, Stella, can you understand me?" Eugene opened his mouth to respond, and this time, words came. But they were not his alone, nor were they Stella's. They spoke as one, their voices blending in a way that made it impossible to distinguish between them. "We understand," they said, their words carrying the weight of two worlds. "We are here. We are. More." The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka scrambled to restore power to their equipment, desperate to capture data on this new development. Ambassador Linden conferred urgently with Dr. Rodriguez, while Zoran watched the scene unfold with a mixture of awe and apprehension. As the initial shock wore off, Eugene and Stella became aware of a commotion outside the facility. Through their enhanced senses, they could hear the roar of a crowd, feel the tension in the air. The world was changing, and they were at the center of it all. Dr. Lyra, the Gamelin evolutionary biologist, burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is beyond our wildest theories," she exclaimed, approaching Eugene and Stella with a reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. "You've achieved a level of symbiosis we thought impossible." As the scientists and diplomats debated around them, Eugene and Stella remained focused on each other, exploring the depths of their newfound connection. They could sense the fear and uncertainty radiating from those around them, but also a glimmer of hope. Hope for a future where the barriers between their species could truly be broken down. The energy pulses continued to emanate from their joined hands, growing stronger with each passing moment. The air crackled with potential, both wonderful and terrifying. As Eugene and Stella stood, their movements perfectly synchronized, they knew that this was only the beginning. The true test of their bond and of the unity between their peoples lay ahead. Ahead, the air around them crackled with energy, their very existence a catalyst for change. As Eugene and Stella stood united, the room erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka scrambled to restore power to their equipment, fighting against the lingering effects of the electromagnetic pulse. Sparks flew from damaged consoles as they worked, their faces illuminated by the soft glow emanating from the hybrid pair. Ambassador Linden, her composure slightly shaken, approached Eugene and Stella with measured steps. Zoran and Dr. Rodriguez flanked her, their expressions a mix of awe and apprehension. As they drew near, Eugene and Stella's eyes locked onto them with an intensity that seemed to pierce through to their very souls. Without warning, Eugene and Stella raised their hands in perfect unison. A visible wave of energy pulsed from their palms, enveloping the approaching trio. Ambassador Linden gasped, her body tensing as the energy field washed over her. Zoran's eyes widened, his stoic demeanor cracking for a moment. Dr. Rodriguez stumbled, her hand flying to her temple. In that instant, their minds became one with Eugene and Stella's shared consciousness. Information flowed between them like a raging river, breaking down the barriers of individual experience and knowledge. Ambassador Linden found herself standing in the grand halls of the Gamelin High Council, witnessing centuries of alien history unfold before her eyes. She felt the weight of their struggles, their triumphs, their hopes and fears as if they were her own. Zoran's mind exploded with the richness of human culture. He tasted the sweetness of a child's first ice cream, felt the exhilaration of a roller coaster ride, experienced the complex tapestry of human emotions in all their intensity. Dr. Rodriguez's scientific mind reeled as it was filled with concepts that bridged the gap between human and Gamelin technologies. Theories she had spent years developing suddenly clicked into place, while entirely new avenues of research opened up before her. As quickly as it had begun, the connection faded. The three stumbled backward, their minds struggling to process the overwhelming influx of information. Eugene and Stella lowered their hands, the glow surrounding them dimming slightly. Dr. Lyra, unable to contain her excitement, pushed past the stunned group. She raised the sleek Gamelin device, its surface covered in pulsing lights, and began scanning Eugene and Stella. As she studied the readings, her eyes grew wide with wonder. "Incredible," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "The hybridization. It's stable. They've achieved a perfect balance between human and Gamelin physiology. This is a new form of life, combining the best traits of both our species." Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka, having finally restored some of their equipment, confirmed Dr. Lyra's findings. The implications of their discovery sent shockwaves through the room. Outside the medical facility, the situation was rapidly deteriorating. The roar of the crowd grew louder, punctuated by angry shouts and the sound of breaking glass. Security forces struggled to maintain order as protesters from the newly formed Pure Earth movement clashed with those supporting the Human Gamelin Alliance. Ambassador Harding, seizing the opportunity to reassert his influence, called for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. His voice, filled with barely concealed fear and anger, echoed through the corridors of power. "This hybrid abomination poses an existential threat to humanity," he declared. "We must contain it before it's too late." Back in the medical facility, Eugene and Stella began to explore their new abilities. With a mere thought, they lifted a heavy medical scanner. the device floating effortlessly in the air between them. They moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics, their movements perfectly synchronized. More astonishing still was their ability to manipulate the energy field surrounding them. With a wave of their hands, they interfaced directly with the facility's computer systems. Displays flickering to life and data streaming across screens faster than the human eye could follow. Dr. Rodriguez, her mind still reeling from the earlier connection, stepped forward. "I think I understand," she said, her voice filled with awe. "The hybrid state has unlocked abilities latent in both human and gamelin DNA. It's a synergistic effect, transcending the limitations of either species alone." As word of these new abilities spread, the atmosphere in the facility grew tense. Military leaders from both Earth and Gamelin began making inquiries, their interest in the potential applications of hybrid technology barely disguised. Ambassador Linden, recognizing the gravity of the situation, made a swift decision. "We need to move them," she announced, her voice brooking no argument. "Somewhere secure, away from all this chaos." She quickly assembled a team of trusted scientists, Dr. Bailey, Dr. Tanaka, and Dr. Lyra among them, to accompany Eugene and Stella to a hidden research station. As preparations for the evacuation began, Eugene and Stella spoke for the first time since their transformation. Their voices, a haunting melody of human and gamelin tones, filled the room. "The bridge between worlds is formed," they said in perfect unison. "The next stage of evolution awaits." As the hybrid pair was carefully escorted from the medical facility, Ambassador Linden watched them go, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. She turned to face the chaos that awaited her, knowing that the future of both species now hung in the balance. In the distance, the sound of breaking glass and angry shouts grew louder. The world was changing, and at the center of it all were Eugene and Stella, their very existence a catalyst for a new era in human-gamelin relations. The convoy of vehicles sped through the night, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside the lead transport, Eugene and Stella lay motionless on stretchers, their bodies still emanating a faint glow. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka hovered over them, monitoring their vital signs with a mix of fascination and concern. Ambassador Linden sat at the front, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. The events of the past few hours had left her shaken, but she knew they couldn't afford to stop. Not with so much at stake. Suddenly, a series of alarms blared throughout the vehicle. The driver cursed, fighting to maintain control as the steering wheel jerked in his hands. "What's happening?" Linden demanded, gripping her seat. Dr. Lyra, who had been studying data from her gamelin devices, looked up with wide eyes. "It's them," she said, gesturing to Eugene and Stella. "The energy pulses from their bodies are intensifying. They're interfering with the vehicle's systems." As if to underscore her point, the transport's lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. The engine sputtered and stalled, and the convoy ground to a halt. "We need to get them out of here," Dr. Bailey said urgently. "The confined space is amplifying the effect of the pulses." With no other choice, the team quickly but carefully moved Eugene and Stella out of the transport. As they laid the hybrid pair on the forest floor, an astonishing sight unfolded before them. The moment Eugene and Stella made contact with the ground, the surrounding vegetation began to writhe and grow at an impossible rate. Flowers bloomed in seconds, vines crept up trees, and the very grass beneath their feet seemed to reach towards the unconscious pair. Dr. Bailey pulled out a handheld scanner, her eyes widening as she analyzed the readings. "Incredible," she breathed. "The energy field they're emitting is affecting the plants at a molecular level. It's accelerating growth and causing mutations." Dr. Tanaka joined her, his own equipment capturing data at a furious pace. "Look at the patterns," he said, pointing to the intricate designs forming in the vegetation. "They're mirroring Eugene and Stella's genetic structure." As the scientists marveled at the phenomenon, Ambassador Lyndon's communicator crackled to life. The voice on the other end was tense, urgent. Ambassador, this is Captain Reeves. We've detected multiple vehicles approaching your position at high speed. They're not responding to hails. Lyndon's blood ran cold. She knew exactly who it was. It's Harding, she said grimly. He must have found out about the evacuation. No sooner had she spoken than Eugene and Stella's eyes snapped open in perfect unison. They sat up, their movements fluid and synchronized, and turned their gaze to the horizon. Threat detected, they said in their eerie, harmonized voices. Initiating protective measures. Before anyone could react, a shimmering dome of energy expanded outward from Eugene and Stella, enveloping the entire convoy and a significant portion of the affected forest. The barrier pulsed with an otherworldly light, its surface rippling like water. Dr. Tanaka's equipment began beeping frantically. "Ambassador," he called out, his voice strained. "Eugene and Stella's vital signs are all over the place. Maintaining this barrier is putting an enormous strain on their systems." Lyndon approached the hybrid pair, her hands raised in a placating gesture. "Eugene, Stella, you need to lower the barrier. It's hurting you." Their eyes, glowing with an inner light, turned to her. They shook their heads in perfect synchronization, then pointed to the edge of the barrier. Beyond the shimmering wall of energy, Lyndon could see a group of vehicles skidding to a halt. Armed figures poured out, led by a tall, imposing man she recognized as Colonel Marcus Steele, one of Harding's most trusted operatives. Steele approached the barrier, his face a mask of tenacity. He raised a megaphone to his lips, his voice booming across the clearing. "This is Colonel Steele of Earth Security Forces. By order of Ambassador Harding and the United Nations Security Council, you are to surrender the hybrid subjects immediately. Failure to comply will result in the use of force." Lyndon's mind raced. She knew Steele's reputation. He was a hardliner, deeply mistrustful of alien influence. Reasoning with him would be difficult, if not impossible. She was about to respond when Dr. Lyra's gamelin communicator suddenly lit up, emitting a series of urgent beeps and clicks. "Ambassador," Lyra said, her voice tight with tension, "I'm receiving a priority message from the Gamelin High Council. They've detected Eugene and Stella's energy signature from orbit. They're sending a battlecruiser to secure them." The air seemed to grow thick with tension as the implications of this news sank in. They were caught between Earth forces on the ground and an approaching Gamelin warship from above. As if sensing the escalating danger, Eugene and Stella's bodies began to glow more intensely. The barrier pulsed, sending out waves of energy that caused Steele's team to stumble back. Dr. Lyra, her eyes glued to her equipment, gasped. "The hybrid DNA. It's mutating again. It's incorporating genetic material from the surrounding ecosystem. This level of adaptive capability is unprecedented." Before anyone could process this new information, Eugene and Stella suddenly collapsed, their bodies going limp as the energy barrier flickered and vanished. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tanaka rushed to their side, medical equipment at the ready. "Their systems are overloaded," Dr. Bailey shouted, her fingers flying over her scanner. "We need to stabilize them now." As the medical team worked frantically to save Eugene and Stella, Colonel Steele's forces surged forward, weapons raised. At the same moment, the sky lit up with an otherworldly glow as the Gamelin battlecruiser broke through the cloud cover, its massive form casting shadows over the forest. Ambassador Lyndon stood over the unconscious forms of Eugene and Stella, her body tense, ready to defend them against all comers. As Steele's team closed in from one side and the Gamelin ship loomed overhead, she knew that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of these two remarkable beings, but potentially the future of human-Gamelin relations. The forest clearing, so recently a scene of scientific wonder, now stood on the brink of becoming a battlefield. The air crackled with tension as three factions, human, gamelin, and the hybrid pair, converged on this remote location, each with their own agenda, each ready to fight for what they believed was right. Right. The air crackled with tension as three factions converged, each ready to fight for their beliefs. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. A sleek, unmarked aircraft materialized above the treeline, its stealth technology disengaging as it descended into the clearing. The unexpected arrival momentarily stunned all parties into inaction. The aircraft's hatch opened, revealing a woman in a lab coat. She leapt to the ground with surprising agility, her dark hair whipping in the downdraft from the aircraft's engines. "Ambassador Linden," she called out, striding purposefully towards the group. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. We don't have much time." Linden's eyes narrowed. "How did you find us? Who are you working for?" Dr. Vasquez raised her hands, showing she was unarmed. "I'm a xenobiologist. I've been monitoring the situation independently. I can help stabilize Eugene and Stella's condition." Before Linden could respond, Dr. Bailey interjected, her voice tense. "Whatever you're offering, make it quick. Their vitals are critical." Vasquez pulled a metallic case from her coat. "I've developed a stabilizing serum for hybrid physiologies. It's experimental, but it's their best chance." Linden hesitated, weighing the risks. The sound of Steele's forces advancing and the ominous hum of the Gamelin battlecruiser overhead made the decision for her. "Do it," she ordered. As Vasquez prepared the injections, Steele's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is your final warning. Surrender the subjects now." Vasquez worked swiftly, injecting the serum into Eugene and Stella's necks. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then their bodies began to glow, the light intensifying until it was almost blinding. A wave of energy exploded outward, knocking Steele's advancing forces off their feet. The energy coalesced into a dome, encompassing the entire clearing. Above, the Gamelin ship fired a tractor beam, but it refracted off the dome surface. The ship's lights flickered, and it listed to one side, its systems temporarily overloaded. Inside the dome, Eugene and Stella's eyes fluttered open. They sat up in unison, but their movements were no longer perfectly synchronized. "What happened?" Eugene asked, his voice a mixture of human and Gamelin tones. Stella looked at her hands, flexing her fingers. "We're separate again, but still connected." Dr. Bailey scanned them, her eyes widening at the readings. "Their hybrid physiology has stabilized, but it's still evolving. The energy output is incredible." Eugene turned to Ambassador Linden, his eyes glowing with an inner light. "Ambassador, we have so much to show you. So much potential." Stella nodded, raising her hand. The air shimmered, and suddenly the clearing was filled with holographic projections. Advanced spacecraft, revolutionary medical devices, and impossible structures floated before them. "During our merger," Stella explained, "we accessed vast stores of both human and Gamelin knowledge. The advancements we could achieve together." Linden's mind raced with the implications. She turned to Dr. Lyra. "Can you broadcast this? To both Earth and Gamelin?" Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over her equipment. "Sending now. This will reach every major news network on both planets." As the images spread across two worlds, the mood began to shift. The fear and anger that had driven the conflict began to give way to awe and hope. Social media exploded with discussions of the potential benefits of human-Gamelin cooperation. Seizing the moment, Linden activated her communicator. "This is Ambassador Linden. I'm proposing the immediate creation of a joint human-Gamelin research facility, a neutral ground where we can study and protect Eugene and Stella, and work together towards these advancements." As Lyndon began negotiations, Eugene and Stella's energy dome fluctuated. Dr. Vasquez frowned, studying her readings. The serum is working, but their abilities are still unstable. We need to move them to a more secure location while they adjust. Eugene reached out, taking Stella's hand. Their fingers intertwined and the dome steadied. They looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. "We're ready," Eugene said, his voice strong despite the strain evident on his face. Stella nodded, her gaze never leaving Eugene's. Together, as the convoy prepared to move out, the force around them pulsed with residual energy. The human and Gamelin forces maintained their distance, but the hostility had been replaced by cautious curiosity. Lyndon watched as Eugene and Stella boarded the transport, their bodies still emitting a soft glow. The fate of two species now rested on their shoulders. As the convoy began to move, Lyndon couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. As the convoy began to move, Lyndon couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. The caravan had barely traveled a mile when Dr. Bailey's voice crackled over the comm system, her tone urgent. "Ambassador, we have a situation. Eugene and Stella are changing." Lyndon's grip tightened on her seat. "Changing how, Doctor?" "Their bodies are emitting some kind of pheromone-like substance. It's affecting our team members in close proximity. We need to stop and reassess our transportation plan." The convoy ground to a halt, and Lyndon rushed to the modified vehicle housing Eugene and Stella. As she approached, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The air felt thick, almost syrupy. Dr. Vasquez met her at the door, her face flushed. "It's not just the pheromones. Their physical appearances are altering too." Inside, Eugene and Stella sat side by side, their hands clasped. Eugene's skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, reminiscent of Gamelin biology. Stella's features had softened, becoming more human-like. Their eyes, still glowing faintly, darted between the assembled team members. "We're sorry," Eugene said, his voice a blend of human and Gamelin tones. "We can't control it." Dr. Bailey and Dr. Vasquez huddled over a workbench, their fingers flying across tablets and holographic displays. "We're developing a containment suit," Dr. Bailey explained. "It should minimize the pheromone emissions." Lyndon nodded, her mind racing. "How long?" "An hour, maybe 2, Dr. Vasquez replied. "Make it faster," Lyndon ordered. "We're too exposed here." As the scientists worked, Lyndon made a difficult decision. She split the convoy, assigning Dr. Bailey, Dr. Tanaka, and Dr. Vasquez to accompany Eugene and Stella in the modified vehicle. The rest of the team would follow at a safe distance. 2 hours later, Eugene and Stella were fitted with sleek, silvery containment suits. The suits hummed softly, generating a faint energy field. "It's not perfect," Dr. Bailey warned. "Their unique energy signature interferes with the suit's functionality, but it's the best we can do for now." The convoy resumed its journey, winding through the dense forest. The modified vehicle led the way, its reinforced hull gleaming in the dappled sunlight. As they rounded a bend, Lyndon's eyes widened. A makeshift barricade blocked the road ahead. A group of people, dressed in a mix of worn clothing and improvised armor, stood guard. "Ambassador," her security chief's voice crackled over the comm. "Sensors show a settlement nearby. These appear to be human colonists." A man stepped forward from the group, his bearing confident. "I'm Jack Harper," he called out. "This is our territory. State your business." Lyndon exited her vehicle, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm Ambassador Lyndon. We're on a diplomatic mission and request safe passage." Harper's eyes narrowed. "Diplomatic mission? Out here?" He scanned the convoy, his gaze lingering on the modified vehicle. What are you really transporting? Before Lyndon could respond, a commotion broke out among the colonists. A woman pointed at the modified vehicle, her voice rising in panic. "It's them! The hybrids from the news!" The atmosphere shifted instantly. Some colonists raised weapons, while others fell back, fear evident on their faces. Harper held up a hand, silencing the group. "The hybrids!" His tone was measured, but his eyes gleamed with interest. "Ambassador, I think we need to have a longer conversation." Inside the modified vehicle, Eugene and Stella exchanged worried glances. Their containment suits beeped softly, struggling to maintain the energy field. "Something's wrong," Stella whispered. "The suits. They're not working properly." Eugene nodded, his skin shimmering more intensely beneath the suit. "I can feel it too. Our abilities. They're growing stronger." Outside, Harper approached Lyndon, his voice low. "Those hybrids represent incredible potential. My people could benefit from their knowledge, their abilities. Let us study them, and I'll guarantee your safe passage." Lyndon's fist tight. "They're not bargaining chips, Mr. Harper. They're sentient beings under our protection." As tensions rose, a sudden burst of energy erupted from the modified vehicle. The containment suits had failed, releasing a concentrated wave of pheromones. The effect on the colonists was immediate and unexpected. Instead of aggression, their faces softened. Weapons lowered, and murmurs of understanding rippled through the crowd. Harper blinked, shaking his head as if to clear it. I think I understand now. The importance of what you're doing. The potential for all of us." Seizing the moment, Lyndon quickly negotiated a compromise. The convoy would be allowed passage, and a small team of colonial scientists would join the research effort at the future international facility. As the colonists cleared the barricade, Eugene and Stella emerged from the vehicle. Despite the physical discomfort evident on their faces, they approached the colony's rudimentary computer systems. "We want to help," Eugene said, his voice strained. Stella nodded, placing her hand on a console, "to show what's possible when we work together." Their eyes glowed brightly as they interfaced with the systems. Screens flickered to life, displaying advanced schematics and data streams. The colonists gasped as their outdated technology transformed before their eyes. As the demonstration ended, Eugene and Stella stumbled, their faces pale. Dr. Bailey rushed forward, her scanner whirring. "We need to move," she said urgently. "Their systems are under immense strain." The convoy prepared to depart, now accompanied by a small group of awestruck colonial scientists. As they pulled away, Lyndon's communicator chirped. A message from Earth. Both human and Gamlan governments had agreed in principle to the creation of the International Research Facility. In the modified vehicle, Eugene and Stella leaned against each other, their bodies glowing softly despite their exhaustion. "What do you see?" Stella asked, her voice barely a whisper. "When you think about the future." Eugene's iridescent skin pulsed gently. "I see bridges, not just between humans and Gamelons, but across the stars. We're just the beginning, Stella." As the convoy wound its way through the forest, the vegetation seemed to reach towards the modified vehicle. Leaves unfurled. Flowers bloomed out of season. In their wake, they left a trail of accelerated growth and renewal. Inside the lead vehicle, Dr. Bailey's equipment beeped insistently. New data poured in, hinting at abilities and phenomena yet to be understood. The hybrid pair's evolution continued, outpacing their caretaker's understanding and setting the stage for discoveries that would reshape two worlds. The trail of accelerated growth behind the convoy continued to expand, drawing the attention of local wildlife and causing a stir among the scientific community monitoring their progress. Inside the modified vehicle, Eugene and Stella's containment suits began to emit a series of soft, high-pitched beeps. Dr. Bailey's eyes widened as she studied the readouts on her tablet. "Ambassador," she called out, her voice tense. "We need to stop. The suits are struggling to maintain containment." Lyndon nodded, signaling the convoy to halt. As the vehicles came to a stop, she could already see the effects of Eugene and Stella's presence on the surrounding vegetation. Flowers bloomed in a matter of seconds, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted forest tones. Dr. Vasquez approached the modified vehicle, her tools at the ready. "We'll need to make some adjustments," she explained, her fingers flying over the suit controls. "The pheromone output is intensifying." As the scientists worked, Lyndon noticed a change in the atmosphere. The colonial scientists who had joined them seemed more relaxed, their earlier wariness replaced by an almost serene expression. Even the typically stoic security personnel appeared affected, their postures less rigid. Eugene's voice, strained but clear, carried from within the vehicle. "It's getting harder to control. We can feel everything." Stella nodded, her bioluminescent hair pulsing softly. "The trees, the animals, even the people. It's all connected." Dr. Bailey frowned, studying her readings. "Their empathic abilities are expanding. We need to find a more permanent solution and fast." As the team worked to modify the suits, the convoy's communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was urgent and filled with static. "This is Captain Reynolds of the Forward Scout Team. Ambassador Lyndon, do you copy? We detected a group of armed individuals heading your way. They appear to be human extremists. ETA, 20 minutes. Lyndon's heart raced as she processed the information. "Understood, Captain. Can you identify their leader?" "Affirmative," Reynolds replied. "Facial recognition confirms it's Victor Hawthorne, former military officer, known for his anti-alien rhetoric." Dr. Bailey looked up from her work, her face pale. "We can't move yet. The suits aren't ready." Lyndon's mind raced through their options. "We'll have to stand our ground," she decided. "Prepare defensive positions. And hurry with those suits." As the convoy scrambled to prepare, Eugene and Stella exchanged a look of deep concern. Their skin shimmered with an intensity that seemed to pulse in time with their elevated heart rates. "We can help," Eugene said, his voice stronger now. "Let us out of the suits." Lyndon hesitated, weighing the risks. "Doctor?" Dr. Bailey bit her lip. "It's risky, but their abilities might be our best defense." With a nod from Lyndon, the scientists deactivated the containment suits. As Eugene and Stella stepped out of the vehicle, the air around them seemed to vibrate with energy. The colonial scientists gasped, some stumbling back, as waves of empathic energy washed over them. Eugene closed his eyes, his iridescent skin patterns shifting rapidly. "I can sense them," he said. "Their fear, their anger. It's so strong." Stella reached out, taking his hand. Her hair glowed brighter, tendrils of light seeming to reach out into the forest. "The trees," she whispered. "They'll help us." As the extremist group led by Hawthorne approached, the forest itself seemed to come alive. Vines grew at impossible speeds, creating natural barricades. Trees shifted, their branches intertwining to form a protective canopy over the convoy. Hawthorne's voice rang out, filled with disgust. "Abominations! You think your alien tricks will stop us?" But as his group drew closer, the full force of Eugene and Stella's pheromones hit them. The effect was immediate and visibly unsettling. Several extremists lowered their weapons, confusion evident on their faces. Lyndon stepped forward, her voice calm but authoritative. "Mr. Hawthorne, I urge you to stand down. There's no need for violence here." Hawthorne raised his weapon, his face contorted with rage. "No, I won't let them corrupt humanity." As he prepared to fire, Eugene and Stella moved in perfect synchronization. They raised their hands and a wave of energy pulsed outward. It wasn't destructive, but rather a concentrated burst of their empathic field. Hawthorne froze, his finger on the trigger. Slowly, the hatred drained from his face, replaced by an expression of wonder and then deep shame. His weapon clattered to the ground. What have we done? He murmured, looking at his fellow extremists with horror. As the energy pulse faded, Eugene and Stella swayed on their feet. Dr. Bailey rushed forward to support them, her scanner whirring. Amazing, she breathed. They've somehow projected their empathic abilities, forced an emotional connection. Lyndon approached Hawthorne cautiously. Are you ready to talk now? He nodded, still dazed. I felt what they felt. The potential, the hope. How could we have been so blind? As Lyndon began negotiations with the now pacified extremists, Dr. Vasquez called out from the modified vehicle. Ambassador, we've received a priority message. A joint human Gamelin task force is en route to our location. ETA, 2 hours. Lyndon's mind raced, knowing they couldn't stay in one place for long. She turned to Eugene and Stella, who were leaning against each other, visibly exhausted but still radiating an otherworldly energy. We need to move, she said urgently. Can you make it? Eugene nodded, his skin pulsing with renewed intensity. Yes, but there's something else. Something new. Stella's hair glowed brighter, tendrils of light seeming to reach out towards Eugene. We can hear each other's thoughts now, and not just each other. As if on cue, a flock of birds burst from the trees, circling the convoy in a mesmerizing pattern. In the distance, the howl of a wolf pack echoed, somehow sounding more organized and natural. Dr. Bailey's eyes widened as she studied her readings. Incredible. They're not just communicating empathically anymore. This is full-blown telepathy, extending to the local flora and fauna. Lyndon nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. Then we'll use that to our advantage. Eugene, Stella, can you help guide us through the terrain ahead? We need to find a safe path, somewhere the task force won't easily follow. The hybrid pair closed their eyes, their bodies glowing softly as they reached out with their newfound abilities. When they opened their eyes again, they spoke in unison, their voices carrying an otherworldly resonance. We know the way. As the convoy prepared to move out, Lyndon couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. The evolution of Eugene and Stella was accelerating, bringing with it challenges and possibilities beyond anything they had imagined. With a final look at the transformed force around them, Lyndon gave the order to move out. As the vehicles began to roll, guided by the hybrid pair's unprecedented connection to the world around them, she steeled herself for the journey ahead. The path to understanding and cooperation between humans and Gamelons would not be easy, but with Eugene and Stella leading the way, it felt more possible than ever before. As the convoy wound its way through the dense forest, guided by Eugene and Stella's unprecedented connection to the environment, Ambassador Lyndon couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from finished. The hybrid pair's abilities continued to evolve at an alarming rate, presenting both opportunities and challenges that would shape the future of human-Gamelin relations. After several days of careful navigation, the convoy finally reached its destination, a hidden research facility nestled deep within a remote mountain range. As they approached, the ground beneath them began to shift, revealing a massive hangar door seamlessly integrated into the landscape. Dr. Bailey leaned forward, her eyes wide with awe. Incredible. The facility's been right under our noses this whole time. The vehicles descended into the underground complex, a marvel of human and Gamelin engineering. As Eugene and Stella were carefully transferred from their modified transport, the air around them seemed to crackle with energy. Dr. Alexei Volkov, the facility's lead scientist, greeted them with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Welcome to Project Synthesis," he said, his accent thick with Russian inflection. "We've been preparing for your arrival." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Eugene and Stella were settled into their new quarters. The facility buzzed with the hum of advanced equipment, much of it specially designed to accommodate and study their unique hybrid physiology. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Reeves worked tirelessly, setting up monitoring systems and running preliminary tests. The results were staggering. "Their pheromone output is off the charts," Dr. Reeves reported, studying a holographic display of fluctuating data. "We'll need to implement strict exposure protocols for all staff." As if to underscore his point, a junior researcher walked past, her eyes glazed over in a state of heightened empathy. Another staff member nearby blinked rapidly, his irises briefly flashing with bioluminescence. Dr. Volkov frowned, tapping his tablet. "Increase the air filtration in sectors 3 through 7. We can't afford any lapses in objectivity." Meanwhile, Eugene and Stella underwent a battery of tests, each one revealing new facets of their rapidly evolving abilities. During a routine scan, Eugene's skin suddenly shifted, taking on the exact color and texture of the examination table. Dr. Bailey gasped, her scanner whirring frantically. "Adaptive camouflage? This is unprecedented." Stella, observing from a nearby containment chamber, closed her eyes in concentration. Her luminescent hair began to pulse rhythmically, sending waves of soft light cascading through the room. A technician monitoring the facility's power grid called out in surprise. "We're picking up electromagnetic fluctuations corresponding to the subject's bioluminescent activity." Dr. Volkov's eyes gleamed with scientific fervor. "Fascinating. Their evolution is accelerating beyond our wildest predictions." As the days wore on, the challenges of containing and studying Eugene and Stella's abilities mounted. Their bond intensified, their thoughts and emotions becoming so intertwined that it became difficult to distinguish where one ended and the other began. During a routine telepathy test, Eugene suddenly clutched his head, overwhelmed by a flood of sensory input. "The trees," he gasped. "I can hear them even down here. They're singing." Stella reached out, her fingers intertwining with his. "Not just the trees," she whispered. "Everything. The rocks, the air, the very atoms around us. It's all connected." Dr. Reeves exchanged a worried glance with Dr. Bailey. "We need to find a way to stabilize their condition. At this rate, their powers could overwhelm them entirely." It was then that Dr. Volkov unveiled his latest creation, the harmonic resonator. The device, a sleek cylinder pulsing with an otherworldly light, promised to channel and stabilize the hybrid pair's unique energy. "With this," Volkov explained, his voice brimming with pride, "we can not only contain their abilities but potentially amplify them in controlled conditions." Initial tests with the harmonic resonator showed promise, allowing Eugene and Stella moments of clarity and control amidst the storm of their evolving powers. However, the long-term effects remained a mystery, a fact that caused great concern on the minds of the research team. As the experiments continued, strange phenomena began to manifest throughout the facility. The hydroponic gardens experienced explosive growth, plants twisting into impossible shapes and bearing fruit of unusual size and color. Electronic systems throughout the complex experienced unexplained efficiency boosts, processing data at rates that defied their specifications. Dr. Lydia Zhang, a renowned xenobotanist brought in to study the affected flora, marveled at the changes. "These plants," she murmured, examining a leaf that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, "they're exhibiting properties I've never seen before. The potential applications are staggering." As the research team grappled with these new developments, tensions outside the facility reached a boiling point. Reports filtered in of attacks on Gamelin diplomatic outposts by Victor Hawthorne's extremist group, now emboldened and growing in number. Ambassador Linden paced the facility's command center, her face etched with concern. "We're running out of time. The longer we stay hidden, the more volatile the situation becomes." Unbeknownst to the facility staff, their location had not remained as secret as they had hoped. General Stryker and Commander Zorro, leading the Joint Human Gamelin Task Force, had narrowed their search to the surrounding region. As night fell on the hidden facility, Dr. Volkov made a fateful decision. Against the advice of his colleagues, he initiated a high-power test of the harmonic resonator, hoping to push the boundaries of Eugene and Stella's abilities. The experiment began smoothly, the device humming with power as it interfaced with the hybrid pair. Eugene and Stella stood within a specially designed chamber, their bodies glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The harmonic resonator's energy output spiked beyond predicted levels, creating a cascading effect through Eugene and Stella's interconnected nervous systems. "Shut it down!" Dr. Bailey shouted, her fingers flying over the control panel. But it was too late. A massive surge of energy erupted from the chamber, sending a shock wave through the entire facility. Lights flickered and died, plunging the complex into darkness. In the chaos that followed, no one noticed the proximity alerts flashing on the now-dead security screens. Above ground, two forces converged on the hidden entrance. Victor Hawthorne's extremist group, armed and ready for a fight, and the Joint Human Gamelin Task Force, led by General Stryker and Commander Zorro. As emergency powers slowly returned to the facility, Eugene and Stella stood in the center of the devastated test chamber, their bodies pulsing with newfound power. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. The true test of their abilities and the future of human-Gamelin relations was about to begin. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy as Eugene and Stella's bodies pulsed with newfound power. Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between them as the facility around them descended into chaos. The shock wave from the harmonic resonator's malfunction rippled through the complex, causing lights to flicker and systems to fail. Emergency powers slowly sputtered to life, casting an eerie red glow throughout the corridors. Alarms blared, their urgent wails echoing off the metal walls. Dr. Bailey stumbled to her feet, her ears ringing from the explosion. She squinted through the haze of smoke, trying to make sense of the readings on her tablet. "Eugene, Stella, are you all right?" The hybrid pair stood motionless in the center of the devastated test chamber, their skin shimmering with an ethereal light. Eugene's normally olive complexion now rippled with waves of iridescent color, while Stella's luminescent hair pulsed with an intensity that made it painful to look at directly. "We're different," Eugene said, his voice resonating with a new timbre. "Everything feels more connected." Stella nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like we can see the very fabric of reality." Before Dr. Bailey could respond, a series of explosions rocked the facility's upper levels. The security systems, still reeling from the power surge, failed to contain the breach. Victor Hawthorne's extremist group had arrived, their fear and hatred of alien influence driving them to desperate action. Dr. Reeves burst into the room, his lab coat singed and torn. "We need to move now. Hawthorne's people have breached the outer defenses." As if on cue, the facility's internal communications crackled to life. Ambassador Linden's voice, tense but controlled, echoed through the speakers. "Attention all personnel. We have multiple hostile forces converging on our location. Initiate emergency protocols immediately." Dr. Bailey and Dr. Reeves exchanged a look of iron will. They knew what had to be done. "Eugene, Stella," Dr. Bailey said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We need to get you to the secure room. It's not safe here." The hybrid pair allowed themselves to be led through the winding corridors of the underground complex. As they moved, their heightened senses picked up on the crescendo of violence above. The clash of makeshift weapons against the facility's security forces, the shouts of anger and fear, all filtered down to them with crystal clarity. They reached the entrance to the panic room, a heavily reinforced chamber designed to withstand even the most determined assault. As the thick door slid open, Eugene hesitated. "Wait," he said, his skin rippling with agitation. "I'm not sure we should dash." His words were cut off by another explosion, closer this time. Dr. Reeves gently but firmly pushed them inside. "I'm sorry, but we have to keep you safe. We'll come for you as soon as it's clear." The door sealed shut with a hiss of hydraulics, leaving Eugene and Stella alone in the sterile confines of the panic room. Almost immediately, they felt the pressure of their combined energy signature pressing against the walls of their minds. Outside, the battle raged on. Victor Hawthorne, his face contorted with righteous fury, led his followers through the facility's upper levels. "Find the abominations," he shouted, his voice hoarse with exertion. "We must purge this alien taint from our world." Meanwhile, in the facility's hydroponic gardens, Dr. Lydia Zhang watched in awe as the plant life around her seemed to come alive with purpose. Vines snaked across the floor, forming intricate patterns. Roots burst from their containers, twisting into barricades that blocked off entire sections of the complex. "Incredible," she breathed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. She tapped furiously at her tablet, recording the unprecedented changes. The arrival of General Stryker and Commander Zorl's Joint Human Gamelin Task Force added another layer of complexity to the already chaotic situation. As they approached the facility's hidden entrance, General Stryker's face was set in grim lines. "We can't let those hybrids fall into the wrong hands," he growled, checking the charge on his plasma rifle. "The potential consequences are too severe." Commander Zorl, his blue skin shimmering in the low light, nodded in agreement. "For once, General, we are in complete accord." As the task force moved to secure the facility, Eugene and Stella's shared visions intensified within the confines of the panic room. Images of possible futures flashed through their minds. A world where humans and gamelons lived in harmony, their combined strengths ushering in an era of unprecedented progress and discovery. The vivid glimpses of what could be strengthened their persistence. Eugene turned to Stella, his eyes glowing with tenacity. "We need to get out there," he said. "We can stop this." Stella nodded, her hair pulsing in time with her racing heart. "Together," she said, reaching for his hand. As their fingers intertwined, a surge of energy coursed through them. The containment systems of the panic room began to falter, unable to cope with the intensity of their combined power. Above them, the battle took an unexpected turn. The energy field emanating from Eugene and Stella began to permeate the facility, touching the minds of both attackers and defenders. A wave of empathy washed over the combatants, causing many to lower their weapons in confusion. One of Hawthorne's followers, a young man named Jace, blinked rapidly as the haze of hatred lifted from his mind. He looked at the security officer he had been grappling with moments before, seeing him not as an enemy, but as a fellow human being. What are we doing?" he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. Similar scenes played out across the facility as the violence slowly ebbed. In the command center, Ambassador Linden seized the opportunity. She activated the facility-wide communication system, her voice ringing out with clarity and purpose. "This is Ambassador Linden to all parties. We are declaring an immediate ceasefire. I repeat, cease all hostilities. We have an opportunity here for dialogue and understanding. Please lay down your weapons." As if in response to her words, the door to the panic room slid open. Eugene and Stella emerged, their bodies transformed by their recent surge in abilities. Eugene's skin shimmered with a chameleonic glow, while Stella's hair danced with patterns of light that seemed to reach out to those around them. They made their way to the central atrium of the facility, where the various factions had gathered in an uneasy truce. As they entered, all eyes turned to them, a collective gasp rippling through the crowd. Eugene stepped forward, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "We are the future," he said, his skin shifting to mirror the diverse faces around him. Not something to be feared, but a bridge between two worlds. Stella joined him, her hair casting a soft, comforting glow over the assembled group. "We can show you the potential of what we can achieve together," she added, her voice harmonizing with Eugene's in a way that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. As they prepared to demonstrate their enhanced abilities, the air in the atrium crackled with anticipation. The future of human-gamelin relations hung in the balance, with Eugene and Stella standing at the center of a potential new era of understanding and cooperation. Cooperation. The room fell silent as Eugene and Stella's presence commanded attention, their newfound abilities radiating an aura of unity and potential. As the tense standoff in the atrium gradually dissolved, Eugene and Stella found themselves drawn to each other with an intensity they had never experienced before. Their eyes locked, and a surge of energy passed between them, causing Eugene's skin to ripple with a kaleidoscope of colors and Stella's hair to pulse with an otherworldly light. Dr. Bailey, ever the scientist, noticed the change immediately. "Fascinating," she muttered, tapping notes into her tablet. Their physiological responses seemed to be amplified when in close proximity to each other. In the days that followed, as the facility slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, Eugene and Stella's connection deepened. They found themselves seeking out moments of privacy, drawn together by an irresistible force. During one such moment in the hydroponic gardens, they explored their transformed bodies with a mixture of curiosity and desire. Eugene ran his fingers through Stella's luminescent hair, marveling at the way it seemed to reach out to him, twining around his wrist. "It's like it has a mind of its own," he murmured, his skin flushing with patterns of blue and gold. Stella traced the shifting colors on Eugene's chest, her touch sending ripples of sensation across his skin. "I can feel your heartbeat through the colors," she whispered, leaning in closer. Their lips met, and a surge of energy pulsed through them both. The plants around them seemed to respond, leaves unfurling and flowers blooming in a matter of seconds. Dr. Zhang, who had been monitoring the accelerated plant growth, stumbled upon the scene. Her scientific curiosity overrode her embarrassment as she quickly began documenting the phenomenon. "Incredible," she breathed, her eyes wide with excitement. "The plants are responding to their combined energy signature." News of Eugene and Stella's evolving relationship spread quickly through the facility. Dr. Bailey and Dr. Reeves initiated a series of tests to better understand the physiological changes occurring in the hybrid pair. They discovered that Eugene and Stella's pheromone emissions had become more potent and targeted, primarily affecting each other. During one particularly intense examination, Dr. Bailey observed Eugene's skin change color in a mesmerizing pattern as Stella entered the room. "Eugene," she said, gesturing to a monitor displaying his vitals, "are you aware that your epidermal chromatophores are forming a specific pattern when Stella is near?" Eugene blinked, looking down at his arms. I can feel it happening, but I can't control it," he admitted. Stella moved closer, her hair beginning to pulse with a soft, rhythmic light. "It's beautiful," she said, reaching out to touch Eugene's kaleidoscopic skin. As their fingers intertwined, the monitors in the lab began to fluctuate wildly. Dr. Reeves rushed to adjust the equipment, calling out readings to Dr. Bailey. "Their neural activity is off the charts," he reported, his voice tinged with awe. "It's as if their nervous systems are synchronizing." Ambassador Linden, recognizing the potential diplomatic implications of a human-gamelin hybrid relationship, arranged for relationship counseling sessions with Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenopsychologist specializing in interspecies relationships. During one such session, Dr. Vasquez probed the depth of Eugene and Stella's connection. When you're together, she asked, her voice gentle but probing, how do you perceive your individual identities? Eugene and Stella exchanged a look, their hands automatically finding each other. It's hard to explain, Eugene began. Sometimes, it's like the lines between us blur. Stella nodded, her hair shimmering with emotion. We're still ourselves, but also more, like two instruments playing in perfect harmony to create a new song. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, intrigued. And how does this affect your decision-making? Your goals? We find ourselves thinking as one, Stella replied. Our desires, our fears, our hopes for the future, they're all aligned. As news of Eugene and Stella's relationship spread beyond the confines of the facility, public opinion on both Earth and Gamelin began to shift. The idea of a human-Gamelin romance captured the imagination of many, leading to a surge in interspecies dating and cultural exchange programs. However, this trend also provoked backlash from conservative factions on both planets. Victor Hawthorne, though in custody, managed to smuggle out a message to his remaining followers. Do not be fooled by this abomination. His manifesto read, the mixing of human and Gamelin blood will lead to the downfall of both our proud species. In response to the growing controversy, the United Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from various alien species gathered to discuss the implications of human-Gamelin hybridization. The council chamber buzzed with heated debates and impassioned speeches. It was during this session that a new voice rose above the clamor. Ambassador Zax, a charismatic and progressive Gamelin diplomat, took the floor. His azure skin gleamed under the council chamber lights as he addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice resonating with conviction. We stand at a crossroads of galactic history. The union of Eugene and Stella represents not a dilution of our species, but an evolution, a bridge between two worlds that have long been divided by fear and misunderstanding. As Zax's words echoed through the chamber, Eugene and Stella, watching the proceedings via holographic transmission, felt a surge of hope. Their hands clasped tightly, they shared a silent vow to continue their journey together, wherever it might lead them. The United Galactic Council session concluded with a tentative agreement to support Eugene and Stella's diplomatic mission to the Gamelin homeworld. As preparations for their journey began, the hybrid couple found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. On the day of their departure, Eugene and Stella stood hand in hand on the launch pad, their bodies humming with nervous energy. Eugene's skin shimmered with a mix of excitement and apprehension, while Stella's hair pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow. Ready? Eugene asked, giving Stella's hand a gentle squeeze. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the same mix of emotions. Together, she replied, echoing their shared mantra. As they boarded the sleek spacecraft, a joint human-Gamelin design, Ambassador Linden approached them for a final briefing. Remember, she said, her voice low and urgent, this mission is crucial for the future of our relations with the Gamelons. Your unique status as hybrids puts you in a position to bridge gaps we've struggled with for years. Eugene and Stella nodded in unison, their shared consciousness allowing them to process the information simultaneously. The launch was smooth, and as Earth receded behind them, a sense of calm settled over the couple. They spent the first few days of their journey, reviewing diplomatic protocols and preparing for their meetings on Gamelin. However, fate had other plans. On the 5th day of their journey, alarms blared throughout the ship. Eugene rushed to the control panel, his skin rippling with shades of red and orange in response to the sudden danger. Massive ion storm detected, he called out, his fingers flying over the controls. It's directly in our path. Stella joined him, her hair crackling with energy as she assessed the situation. We can't go around it, she said, her voice tense. It's too large. They tried to navigate through the storm, but the ship bucked and shuddered under the assault of ionized particles. Systems began to fail one by one, and Eugene and Stella realized they were fighting a losing battle. "There!" Stella shouted, pointing to a small planet on the navigation screen. "It's our only chance." Eugene nodded grimly and aimed the failing ship towards the uncharted world. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, the controls became unresponsive. The ship plummeted, heat building around its hull as it careened towards the surface. In those terrifying moments, Eugene and Stella's bond intensified. Their minds merged, working in perfect synchronicity to prepare for impact. Eugene's skin hardened and thickened, forming a protective layer, while Stella's hair wrapped around them both, creating a cocoon of bioluminescent strands. The impact was violent. Metal screamed and tore as the ship plowed into the planet's rocky surface. When the dust settled, an eerie silence fell over the crash site. Slowly, the protective cocoon of Stella's hair unwound. Eugene's skin, which had taken on a rocky texture matching their surroundings, gradually softened. They emerged from the wreckage, battered but alive. The air was thin and acrid, making breathing difficult. Eugene's skin continued to adapt, developing microscopic structures that helped filter the harsh atmosphere. Stella's hair pulsed with an urgent rhythm, alerting them to unseen dangers in their environment. "We need to salvage what we can," Eugene said, his voice rough from the toxic air. Together, they worked to retrieve supplies from the wreckage. Their shared mental link allowed them to coordinate their efforts effortlessly, moving in tandem as they gathered food, water, and emergency equipment. As night fell, they constructed a makeshift shelter using parts of the ship's hull. The planet's landscape was forbidding. Jagged rock formations stretched as far as the eye could see, while swirling dust storms obscured the horizon. In the relative safety of their shelter, Eugene and Stella took stock of their situation. Their hybrid physiology had undoubtedly saved their lives, allowing them to withstand conditions that would have been lethal to either humans or gamelons alone. "We're alive," Stella said, her hair casting a soft glow over their huddled forms. "That's what matters." Eugene nodded, his skin rippling with a pattern that mirrored the pulsing of Stella's hair. "We'll find a way off this planet," he assured her. Together, as they settled in for the night, their bodies naturally drew closer. The stress of their situation had intensified their pheromone production, creating an almost palpable aura of attraction between them. They found solace in each other's arms, their hybrid anatomies fitting together perfectly. In the days that followed, Eugene and Stella fell into a routine of survival. They rationed their supplies carefully, knowing they had no way of predicting how long they'd be stranded. Eugene's chameleonic skin proved invaluable for camouflage as they explored their surroundings, while Stella's bioluminescent hair served as both a light source and an early warning system for environmental hazards. On the 5th day after the crash, as they ventured further from their shelter than ever before, Stella's hair suddenly blazed with an intense light. "Eugene," she whispered, pointing to a barely visible structure in the distance. "Look." As they approached, they realized they were looking at the remnants of an ancient building, half buried in the planet's rocky soil. The architecture was unlike anything they had ever seen, with sweeping curves and intricate patterns etched into what appeared to be a metal-like substance. "An alien civilization," Eugene breathed, his skin shifting to mirror the structure's patterns. "Long dead, by the looks of it." As they stepped closer to investigate, neither of them could have predicted how this discovery would change the course of their lives, and potentially the future of human-gamelon relations. As Eugene and Stella continued to explore the alien ruins, a distant rumble caught their attention. They turned their gaze skyward, eyes widening as they saw a fleet of ships descending through the planet's atmosphere. "Is that?" Eugene's voice trailed off, his skin rippling with a mix of hope and disbelief. Stella's hair pulsed with an intense blue light. "It's them," she confirmed, her voice trembling with emotion. "They found us." The couple watched in awe as the joint human gamelin rescue fleet touched down on the barren surface. As the ship's hatches opened, familiar faces emerged, led by Ambassador Linden and Ambassador Zax. Eugene and Stella rushed towards their rescuers, their bodies moving in perfect synchronicity. Ambassador Linden's usually composed demeanor cracked as she embraced them both. "We thought we'd lost you," she said, her voice thick with relief. Ambassador Zax stepped forward, his azure skin gleaming in the harsh light of the alien sun. "Your survival is nothing short of miraculous," he declared, genuine admiration in his eyes. As the initial excitement of the reunion subsided, Dr. Bailey approached with her medical scanner. "We need to get you both checked out immediately," she insisted, ushering them towards one of the ships. Inside the medical bay, Dr. Bailey's eyes widened as she examined the results of her scans. "This is extraordinary," she muttered, looking from her device to Eugene and Stella and back again. "What is it?" Eugene asked, his skin shifting nervously. Dr. Bailey shook her head in amazement. "Your hybrid physiology has undergone further changes. Eugene, your skin has developed additional resistance to extreme temperatures and radiation. And Stella, your hair can now detect a wider range of environmental hazards." As the couple absorbed this information, Ambassador Linden entered the medical bay, her face grave. "We need to debrief you both immediately," she said. "What you've discovered here could change everything." In the ship's conference room, Eugene and Stella recounted their discovery of the alien ruins. As they described the ancient structure and its intricate designs, Ambassador Linden's expression grew increasingly excited. "This could be the find of the century," she declared. Turning to a communications panel, she issued a rapid series of orders. "I want a team of xenoarchaeologists down there immediately. We need to study these ruins before we leave." As the research team began their work, Eugene and Stella found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. News of their survival and the discovery of the alien ruins spread rapidly through both human and gamelin space. Dr. Vasquez, the xenopsychologist, requested a series of interviews with the couple. During one session, she leaned forward, her eyes intent. "How has your shared experience affected your connection?" Eugene and Stella exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. "It's stronger now," Stella explained. "We can communicate without words, anticipate each other's needs." "It's like we're two parts of a whole," Eugene added, his skin shifting to match the pattern of Stella's glowing hair. As the implications of their enhanced abilities became clear, Ambassador Zax approached the couple with a proposal. "I believe this is an opportunity to further the cause of human gamelin integration," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Would you consider undergoing a traditional gamelin bonding ceremony?" Eugene and Stella didn't hesitate. "Yes," they said in unison, their bodies humming with shared anticipation. The bonding ceremony quickly became an impromptu diplomatic event. Representatives from both human and gamelin governments attended via holographic transmission, watching as Eugene and Stella participated in the complex exchange of pheromones and bioelectric signals. As the ceremony reached its peak, something unexpected occurred. The ship systems began to flicker, holographic displays throughout the vessel showing fragmented images of an ancient civilization. "What's happening?" Ambassador Linden demanded, her eyes fixed on the strange images. Dr. Bailey rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's Eugene and Stella," she explained, her voice filled with awe. "Their hybrid energy signatures are interacting with the alien technology still present in their bodies. They're accessing some kind of stored data." The images revealed tantalizing glimpses of a society that had mastered genetic hybridization, creating beings of incredible adaptability and power. The assembled diplomats and scientists watched in stunned silence as the implications of this discovery became clear. Suddenly, the transmission was interrupted. A familiar face appeared on the screens. Victor Hawthorne, his eyes blazing with fanatical intensity. "Do not be fooled by this abomination," he shouted. "Hybridization will lead to the downfall of both our species." The interruption caused an immediate uproar among the diplomats. Some voiced concerns about the risks of pursuing hybrid technology, while others argued passionately for its potential benefits. In the midst of the chaos, Eugene and Stella stepped forward. Their unique perspective as hybrids allowed them to address concerns from both humans and gamelons. They spoke of their experiences, the strengths they'd gained, and the deeper understanding they'd developed of both cultures. As the debate raged on, the rescue fleet prepared to leave the uncharted planet. Eugene and Stella stood at a viewport, watching as the alien world receded behind them. They knew that their discovery of the lost civilization and their own evolving abilities would have far-reaching consequences for human-gamelon relations. "What happens now?" Stella asked, her hair pulsing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Eugene took her hand, his skin shifting to match the stars outside. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." "Together," Eugene finished, squeezing Stella's hand. As they watched the alien world shrink behind them, the rescue fleet's interior buzzed with activity. Eugene and Stella found themselves swept up in a whirlwind of medical examinations, debriefings, and intense discussions about the implications of their discovery. Dr. Bailey's medical bay became their second home as she conducted a series of comprehensive tests. During one particularly lengthy session, Eugene lay on an examination table, his skin shifting through a kaleidoscope of patterns as Dr. Bailey ran her scanner over his body. "Fascinating," she murmured, her eyes fixed on the readout. "Eugene, your skin seems to be developing new properties. Can you feel this?" She passed a small device over his arm, and Eugene gasped as he felt a surge of warmth. "It's like I'm absorbing energy," he said, watching in awe as his skin took on a faint golden glow. Nearby, Stella sat with her hair spread out on a specialized sensor pad. As Dr. Bailey adjusted some controls, Stella's hair began to pulse with an intense light. "Try to focus the light," Dr. Bailey instructed. Stella closed her eyes, concentrating. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from her hair, leaving a scorch mark on the far wall. "Incredible," Dr. Bailey breathed. "Your abilities are evolving at an unprecedented rate." As news of their enhanced abilities spread, Eugene and Stella found themselves at the center of a growing controversy. During a tense meeting with Ambassador Lyndon and Ambassador Zax, they learned of the political storm brewing around them. "General Stryker is pushing for a program to create more hybrids like you," Ambassador Lyndon explained, her face creased with worry. "He sees military applications." Ambassador Zax nodded gravely. "And conservative factions on both our worlds are resisting any further integration. They fear losing what makes us. Us." Eugene's skin rippled with concern. "What can we do?" "We need to shape public opinion," Ambassador Lyndon said. "Show them the positive aspects of hybridization." That conversation led to their participation in a galaxy-wide broadcast. As billions of humans and gamelons watched, Eugene and Stella demonstrated their new abilities. Eugene's skin absorbed a dangerous radiation leak, protecting a team of scientists, while Stella used her light-emitting hair to guide a rescue team through a pitch-black spacecraft. The broadcast had an immediate impact, swaying many toward supporting hybrid research. However, it also made Eugene and Stella targets. During a public appearance on Earth, a shot rang out. Eugene's skin hardened instantly, deflecting the bullet meant for Stella. As security swarmed around them, Stella's hair blazed with light, temporarily blinding their would-be assassin. In the aftermath of the attack, Dr. Vasquez recommended they step back from the public eye. Ambassador Zax offered a solution. "We have a remote colony world," he said. "It would provide sanctuary while we navigate these turbulent times." Before their departure, Dr. Bailey insisted on one final round of tests. As Eugene and Stella waited for the results, they couldn't shake a sense of anticipation. Dr. Bailey entered the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "I don't quite know how to say this," she began, "but it appears your hybrid physiology has rendered you capable of producing offspring." The news hit them like a shock wave. Eugene's skin flickered through a rainbow of colors, while Stella's hair pulsed with an intense glow. "Are you saying we could have a child?" Stella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Bailey nodded. "The first human gamelin hybrid child. The implications are, well, enormous." As they prepared to board the transport to the gamelin colony, a tall, slender woman with silver hair approached them. "Eugene, Stella," she said, her voice melodious. "I'm Dr. Alara Vex. I've been studying hybrid possibilities for years in secret, and I believe I can help you understand and control your evolving abilities." Eugene and Stella exchanged a look, their unspoken communication more fluid than ever. "What about?" Stella began. "Your potential child?" Dr. Vex finished with a smile. "I can assist with that, too, if you choose to pursue it." As they boarded the high-security gamelin transport, reports flooded in of increased extremist activity. Victor Hawthorne's face appeared on screens throughout the ship, his eyes blazing with familiar intensity as he railed against the hybrid menace. Eugene's skin shifted to match the starfield visible through the viewport, while Stella's hair emitted a soft, calming glow. As the ship prepared for departure, they knew they were leaving behind a galaxy in turmoil, with the fate of human gamelin relations hanging in the balance. Dr. Vex settled into a seat across from them, her silver eyes gleaming with barely suppressed excitement. "Shall we begin?" she asked, producing a holographic display filled with complex genetic data. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Eugene and Stella leaned forward, eager to unlock the secrets of their hybrid nature and explore the possibilities that lay ahead. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Eugene and Stella leaned forward, eager to unlock the secrets of their hybrid nature and explore the possibilities that lay before them. The journey to Haven was uneventful, yet filled with anticipation. As their ship descended through the atmosphere of the lush, terraformed planet, Eugene's skin rippled with excitement, mimicking the swirling clouds outside the viewport. Stella's hair pulsed with a soft, azure glow, reflecting the planet's vibrant oceans. Upon landing, they were greeted by Governor Zill, a tall, imposing gamelin male with deep blue skin and piercing amber eyes. "Welcome to Haven," he said, his voice a low rumble. "We prepared a residence for you on the outskirts of our main settlement. Privacy is our utmost concern." As they followed Governor Zill to a waiting transport, Eugene and Stella took in their surroundings. The spaceport bustled with activity, a mix of human and gamelin scientists scurrying about their tasks. The air was thick with the scent of alien flora, a sweet, almost spicy aroma that tickled their senses. Their new home was a sleek, bioengineered structure that seamlessly blended with the surrounding landscape. As they settled in, Dr. Vex wasted no time in setting up her laboratory nearby. "We'll begin our test tomorrow," she said, her silver eyes gleaming with excitement. "For now, rest and acclimate to your new environment." Over the next few weeks, Eugene and Stella fell into a routine of rigorous testing interspersed with exploration of their new home. During one of their excursions into the lush forest surrounding their residence, Eugene discovered an unexpected application of his abilities. As they pushed through a thicket of iridescent ferns, Eugene's skin began to shift and change, taking on the exact patterns and colors of the alien vegetation. "Stella, look at this!" he exclaimed, holding out his arm, which was now indistinguishable from the surrounding plants. Stella's eyes widened in amazement. "It's perfect camouflage," she breathed. As if in response to her excitement, her hair began to pulse with a soft light. Suddenly, a small, moth-like creature fluttered towards her, drawn by the bioluminescence. Incredible! Eugene murmured as more of the creatures gathered around Stella, their delicate wings creating a shimmering cloud. Back at Dr. Vex's laboratory, the couple's new abilities were put to the test. Eugene stood in the center of a specially designed chamber, his skin absorbing and redirecting various forms of radiation. As the energy levels increased, his body began to glow with a golden light. "Remarkable," Dr. Vex muttered, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "You're not just absorbing the energy, you're converting it into a usable form." Meanwhile, Stella sat before a complex gamelan computer system, her hair emitting intricate patterns of light. To everyone's amazement, the computer responded, its screens filling with data as Stella's bioluminescent signals interfaced directly with the alien technology. As word of their progress spread, Haven saw an influx of scientists eager to study the hybrid couple. Governor Zill, ever vigilant, implemented strict security protocols to maintain order and protect Eugene and Stella's privacy. One evening, as they relaxed in their home after a long day of tests, Eugene noticed Stella's distant expression. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his skin shifting to match her pensive mood. Stella turned to him, her hair emitting a soft, pulsing glow. "I was thinking about our future," she said quietly. "About children." Eugene's heart raced, his skin flickering through a kaleidoscope of colors. "Are you saying you want to try?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Stella could respond, an alarm blared through their residence. Governor Zill's voice came over the communication system, urgent and tense. "Eugene, Stella, we have a security breach. Anti-hybrid extremists have infiltrated the colony. Stay where you are. A security team is en route to your location." As the alarm continued to wail, Eugene's skin hardened into a protective shell, while Stella's hair blazed with intense light. They stood back to back, ready to face whatever threat was coming their way, their shared hybrid nature now more than ever a source of strength and unity. Unity, as Eugene and Stella braced themselves for the imminent threat. The room's lighting suddenly flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Stella's hair instinctively blazed to life, casting an eerie glow throughout the space. Eugene's skin shifted to a reflective sheen, amplifying the light. In the illuminated room, they could see the fear etched on each other's faces. A thunderous explosion rocked the building, shattering the eerie silence. The couple's hybrid instincts kicked in, their bioelectric fields synchronizing as they moved in perfect unison towards the exit. "We need to get to Dr. Vex," Eugene said, his voice tight with urgency. As they stepped into the corridor, chaos erupted around them. Alarms blared and panicked colonists rushed past, their faces contorted with fear. Through the cacophony, they heard Governor Zill's voice over the colony-wide communication system. "Attention, all residents. This is not a drill. We are under attack by anti-hybrid extremists. Please proceed to your designated safe zones immediately." Eugene and Stella exchanged a determined look. They knew they couldn't hide. They had to act. Racing through the corridors, they encountered pockets of resistance. Eugene's skin hardened into an impenetrable shield as he deflected energy blasts aimed at them. Stella's hair whipped out, forming tendrils of light that blinded their attackers. They arrived at Dr. Vex's laboratory to find the door blown off its hinges. Inside, the silver-haired scientist was frantically working at her console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Dr. Vex!" Stella called out. The scientist's head snapped up, relief washing over her face. "Engine, Stella, thank goodness you're here. We need to destroy all the research data immediately." As Dr. Vex initiated the emergency protocol, a new series of explosions rocked the building. Through the shattered windows, they saw a group of heavily armed mercenaries advancing on the lab. "Who are they?" Eugene asked, his skin rippling with tension. Dr. Vex's face darkened. They call themselves the Collector. They're after my research. And you? Without warning, the lab's defensive systems failed. The mercenaries breached the outer perimeter, their weapons trained on the trio. This way, Dr. Vex shouted, revealing a hidden panel in the wall. There's a network of tunnels beneath the colony. We can use them to reach the secure bunker. As they disappeared into the tunnel, Eugene's chameleonic skin adapted to the darkness, allowing him to detect hidden tripwires and pressure plates. Stella's bioluminescent hair provided crucial illumination, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Their silent communication grew stronger in the confines of the tunnel. Thoughts and impressions flowed between them, allowing them to navigate the complex maze with uncanny precision. Suddenly, Eugene froze. His skin prickled with an unfamiliar sensation. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "I can feel energy building up ahead." Dr. Vex's eyes widened. "They've activated the tunnel's defense grid. We're trapped." As if on cue, the tunnel behind them collapsed, cutting off their retreat. Ahead, they could hear the heavy footsteps of the Collector's mercenaries. "There's no other choice," Dr. Vex said, her voice filled with trepidation. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, pulsing device. "This is a prototype amplifier for hybrid abilities. I've never tested it before. The effects could be unpredictable." Eugene and Stella shared a momentary look of understanding. Without a word, they each placed a hand on the device. Dr. Vex activated it, and a surge of energy coursed through their bodies. The transformation was immediate and intense. Eugene's skin began to glow with a blinding light, emitting waves of pure energy that repelled everything around him. Stella's hair extended into gleaming tendrils, reaching out to interface with the tunnel systems. As the mercenaries rounded the corner, Eugene unleashed a pulse of energy that sent them flying backward. Stella's luminous tendrils danced across the walls, overriding the defense grid and turning it against their attackers. The amplification, however, came at a cost. Pain seared through their bodies, every cell feeling as if it were on fire. Their minds reeled from the influx of sensory information. In that moment of crisis, something extraordinary happened. Eugene and Stella's consciousnesses began to merge, creating a shared hybrid mind. Their thoughts, memories, and abilities flowed together, allowing them to process information and react with inhuman speed. As one, they surged forward, their amplified abilities carving a path through the mercenaries. They emerged from the tunnels into the heart of the colony, where the battle raged in full force. Governor Zill's voice crackled over the communication system. "Engine, Stella, the terraforming control center has been compromised. If we lose it, we lose Haven." Without hesitation, the merged hybrid entity that was Eugene and Stella moved towards the center. Their amplified abilities allowed them to manipulate the environment itself, turning Haven's atmosphere and terrain against the attackers. As they fought, they became aware of a dark presence observing them. The Collector, a shadowy figure cloaked in advanced technology, watched from afar, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of fascination and greed. The battle reached its crescendo as the human Gamlan task force arrived in orbit. The skies above Haven lit up with the exchange of weapons fire as the reinforcements engaged the extremist ships. On the ground, Eugene and Stella's shared consciousness began to falter. The strain of maintaining their amplified state was taking its toll. As they fought to hold on to their connection, they realized the true power of their hybrid nature, not just in their abilities, but in their unity. With one final monumental effort, they channeled their remaining energy into a massive pulse that swept across the colony, disabling the attackers' weapons and shields. As the pulse faded, Eugene and Stella collapsed, their bodies returning to their normal state. The last thing they saw before losing consciousness was the Collector disappearing in a flash of light, leaving behind a detonating explosive device. Then darkness claimed them, the sounds of the battle fading into silence. The explosion rocked the colony, sending shockwaves through the ground. As the dust settled, rescue teams rushed to the scene, sifting through the debris for survivors. Among the rubble, they found Eugene and Stella, unconscious but alive, their bodies intertwined as if shielding each other from the blast. The next few weeks passed in a haze of medical treatments and recovery. Eugene and Stella drifted in and out of consciousness, their hybrid physiology working overtime to heal their injuries. Dr. Vex, despite her own injuries, oversaw their care personally, monitoring the changes in their bodies with a mixture of concern and fascination. As they slowly regained awareness, Eugene and Stella noticed subtle but significant changes in their abilities. Eugene's skin now emitted a constant, low-level energy field that tingled when touched. Stella's hair maintained a soft, ethereal glow even when she wasn't actively using her bioluminescent powers. It seems the amplification device has had some lasting effects, Dr. Vex explained, her silver eyes scanning the latest test results. Your hybrid physiology has stabilized into a new equilibrium. We're still studying the full implications, but it appears your baseline abilities have been permanently enhanced. As Eugene and Stella continued their recovery, Haven buzzed with activity. The colony, still reeling from the attack, was undergoing rapid changes. Governor Zill had implemented new security protocols, and the streets were now patrolled by a joint human-Gamelin defense force. One morning, as Eugene and Stella were taking a short walk through the medical facilities garden, they noticed a commotion at the spaceport. A sleek diplomatic vessel was touching down, its hull bearing the insignias of both Earth and Gamelin. Ambassadors, Governor Zill's voice crackled over their communication devices. Your presence is requested at the council chambers. Curious, Eugene and Stella made their way to the heart of the colony. As they entered the council chambers, they found themselves face to face with Ambassador Linden and Ambassador Zax, the human and Gamelin representatives who had initially proposed the hybrid program. Eugene, Stella, Ambassador Linden greeted them warmly. It's good to see you on your feet. We've come to assess the situation here on Haven and discuss the future of the hybrid program. Ambassador Zax nodded, his metallic skin reflecting the room's lights. Your actions during the attack have not gone unnoticed. There's increased support for hybrid research across both our worlds. As the meeting progressed, Eugene and Stella learned of the complex political landscape they now found themselves in. While support for the hybrid program had grown, so too had opposition from extremist groups on both sides. We believe it's time for you to take a more active role in shaping human-Gamelin relations, Ambassador Linden proposed. We're planning a goodwill tour visiting key locations on both Earth and Gamelin. Your presence could do much to demonstrate the benefits of our cooperation. Eugene and Stella exchanged a glance, their enhanced connection allowing them to share their thoughts without words. They both felt a mix of excitement and apprehension at the prospect. We'll do it, Stella said, her hair pulsing with a soft light. If our experiences can help bring our people closer together, we want to be part of that. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Eugene and Stella underwent a series of physical and psychological evaluations, their enhanced abilities pushing the limits of the colony's testing equipment. During one particularly intense session, Eugene and Stella discovered that their mental connection had deepened even further. As they stood in the center of a holographic simulation chamber, they found themselves able to share not just thoughts, but sensory experiences and emotions with unprecedented clarity. Fascinating, Dr. Vex murmured, watching as Eugene and Stella moved in perfect synchronization, responding to simulated threats as if they were a single entity. This level of neural synchronization could revolutionize our understanding of hybrid consciousness. As the day of departure approached, a new face joined the Haven research team. Dr. Kira Novin, a human xenobiologist with expertise in adaptive biology and evolutionary genetics, arrived to study Eugene and Stella's ongoing physiological changes. Your DNA contains markers I've never seen before, Dr. Novin explained during their first meeting, her eyes alight with scientific curiosity. It's as if your hybrid nature has unlocked genetic potential that was dormant in both humans and gamelons. The implications are, well, they're staggering. Finally, the day of departure arrived. Eugene and Stella stood at the entrance to their transport vessel, looking back at the colony that had been their home. Haven had changed them, challenged them, and ultimately made them stronger. Now, it was time to share what they had learned with the rest of the galaxy. As they boarded the ship, Governor Zill approached them one last time. "Remember," he said, his voice low and serious, "you're not just ambassadors for Haven, but for the very idea of cooperation between our species. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and above all, stay true to who you are." The ship's engines hummed to life, and Eugene and Stella felt the familiar pull of acceleration as they lifted off from Haven's surface. Through the viewport, they watched as the colony grew smaller, eventually disappearing into the vast expanse of space. Their first destination was Earth's largest space station, Nexus 1. As they approached, the station's massive structure filled their view, a testament to human engineering and ambition. Nexus 1 Control. "This is Diplomatic Vessel Harmony, requesting docking clearance," their pilot announced. There was a moment of tense silence before the response came. "Diplomatic Vessel Harmony, you are cleared for docking. Be advised, we have implemented enhanced security protocols for your arrival." As the ship maneuvered into the docking bay, Eugene and Stella could see the crowds gathered in the observation galleries. Some held signs of welcome and support, while others displayed messages of protest and fear. "Are you ready?" Eugene asked, his skin rippling with nervous energy. Stella took his hand, her hair glowing softly in response to his agitation. "Together," she said simply. The airlock cycled and the doors opened. Eugene and Stella stepped forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on this new frontier of human-gamelon relations. As the transport vessel carrying Eugene and Stella entered gamelon space, the couple stood at the viewport, marveling at the alien star systems that scrolled past. Their journey had been relatively uneventful so far, filled with briefings and preparations for their upcoming diplomatic mission. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Eugene's skin prickled with energy as Stella's hair began to pulse with an urgent glow. "Unidentified vessel on intercept course." The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "All passengers, secure yourselves immediately." Before they could react, the mystery ship revealed itself. Its hull bore the unmistakable insignia of the Collector's organization, overflowing with weapons that were already powering up. "It's a trap," Stella whispered, her luminescent hair intensifying. The mercenary vessel opened fire without warning. The transport rocked violently as its shields absorbed the initial barrage. Gamelon security forces sprang into action, returning fire and executing evasive maneuvers. Eugene's energy-emitting skin flared in response to the attack, creating an unexpected complication. The weapon systems on their transport began to malfunction, their targeting computers scrambled by the intense energy field emanating from his body. "Eugene, your energy signature is interfering with our defenses," shouted the security chief. "We need to find a way to channel it." Stella's hair pulsated rapidly, her enhanced senses allowing her to perceive the battle in ways the others couldn't. "I can see weaknesses in their shield configuration," she called out. "If we can target those points, we might be able to disable their weapons." Working in tandem, Eugene and Stella coordinated with the security team. Eugene focused on channeling his energy field to reinforce their own shields, creating a flickering barrier that absorbed incoming fire. Meanwhile, Stella guided the gunners, her glowing tendrils gesturing towards optimal firing solutions. 3 degrees starboard now," Stella directed. The transport's weapons found their mark, punching through a weak point in the mercenary ship's defenses. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of energy beams and explosive projectiles. Eugene and Stella's hybrid abilities proved crucial, allowing the transport to weather the assault and strike back effectively. Finally, after a series of precision hits guided by Stella's perception, the mercenary vessel began to retreat, trailing debris and venting atmosphere. As the immediate threat subsided, the adrenaline faded, and the true cost of the battle became apparent. Warning lights flashed across control panels, and a deep, concerning rumble emanated from the ship's engines. Propulsion systems critically damaged, the pilot reported grimly. "We can't continue to Gamelin like this." Ambassador Zax, who had been coordinating with Earth and Gamelin authorities during the attack, stepped forward. "There's a joint operations station nearby, Outpost Zeta. We can dock there for emergency repairs." The damaged transport limped towards the space station, a gleaming construct that hung in the void like a metallic snowflake. As they approached, Eugene and Stella could see repair crews already mobilizing in the docking bay. The moment the airlock sealed behind them, security personnel ushered Eugene and Stella deeper into the station. They were led to a secure area, a sterile room filled with advanced medical and scientific equipment. "We need to assess your condition and ensure there are no lasting effects from the battle," explained a silver-skinned Gamelin who introduced himself as Dr. Jerix. His eyes gleamed with hardly restrained excitement as he regarded the hybrid couple. "I've studied the reports from Haven. Your physiological changes are remarkable." As Dr. Jerix conducted his examination, using non-invasive scanners that hummed and pulsed with alien energy, Eugene and Stella recounted the details of the attack. They described the unexpected interactions between their abilities and the ship systems, both the challenges and the advantages it had presented. "Fascinating," Dr. Jerix murmured, studying the results of his scans. "Your hybrid physiology appears to be stabilizing into an entirely new form. It's incorporating elements of both human and Gamelin biology in ways we never thought possible." Before the doctor could elaborate further, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Eugene's skin began to glow more intensely, while Stella's hair writhed with agitation. "What's happening?" Eugene asked, his voice tight with concern. Dr. Jerix's fingers danced across a nearby console, his expression growing more perplexed by the second. "Your bodies. They're reacting to something in the environment, possibly trace elements from Gamelin's upper atmosphere that we use in some of our systems here." The hybrid couple's bodies began to emit a strange, pulsating energy field. Around them, electronic systems flickered and malfunctioned. Medical staff rushed in, working to stabilize Eugene and Stella while station personnel attempted to contain the energy disruptions. Through the chaos, Dr. Jerix's voice cut through, filled with a mixture of concern and scientific awe. "This reaction, it could have significant implications for your ability to adapt to the Gamelin environment. We need to study this further, but right now, we need to get you stabilized." As the medical team worked, Eugene reached out and grasped Stella's hand. Their enhanced connection allowed them to share their fears and grit without words. Whatever challenges lay ahead on Gamelin, they would face them together. Outside the medical bay, the station buzzed with activity. Repair crews worked tirelessly on the damaged transport, while security forces coordinated with intelligence agencies from both Earth and Gamelin. The attack had not been random. It was clear that powerful forces were aligning against the hybrid program and the fragile alliance it represented. As Eugene and Stella's condition stabilized and the energy disruptions were contained, they received word that the transport was nearly ready to depart. However, their ordeal was just the beginning. A coded message from Ambassador Linden warned of increased extremist activity on Gamelin, advising heightened security measures for the remainder of their tour. Despite the threats and the unexpected complications with their hybrid physiology, Eugene and Stella remained resolute in their mission. As they boarded the repaired transport and prepared to enter Gamelin's atmosphere, they knew that the true test of their abilities and the strength of the human-Gamelin alliance was yet to come. The transport shuddered as it hit the outer layers of Gamelin's atmosphere. Eugene and Stella felt their bodies responding to the alien environment, their hybrid physiology adapting in real time. As they descended towards the planet's surface, neither of them could shake the feeling that they were heading into the heart of a gathering storm. Storm, as the transport pierced through the swirling clouds of Gamelin's upper atmosphere. Eugene and Stella felt their bodies responding in ways they hadn't anticipated. Eugene's skin crackled with energy, emitting a soft glow that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's descent. Stella's hair writhed and shimmered, each strand seeming to reach out towards the alien world below. "This is intense," Eugene muttered, his voice tight with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Stella nodded, her eyes wide as she took in the rapidly approaching landscape through the viewport. "It's like our bodies are trying to communicate with the planet itself." The transport shuddered as it broke through the final layer of clouds, revealing a sprawling cityscape of gleaming spires and twisting architecture that defied Earth's conventional design principles. As they approached the main spaceport, both Eugene and Stella gasped at the sight of the massive crowd that had gathered. "Looks like we've drawn quite an audience," Ambassador Zax commented, his expression a mask of practiced neutrality. "Remember, stay close to me and follow security protocols at all times." The ship touched down with a gentle thud, and as the engines powered down, the roar of the crowd outside became audible even through the hull. Eugene and Stella exchanged a nervous glance before steeling themselves for what lay ahead. As the airlock cycled open, they were immediately hit by a wall of sound. Cheers and jeers mingled in the air, creating a cacophony that seemed to vibrate through their very bones. A cordon of security forces, a mix of humans and Gamelons working in tandem, formed a protective barrier around the landing area. Ambassador Zax stepped out first, his silver skin gleaming in the alien sunlight. He turned back to Eugene and Stella, extending a hand. "Welcome to Gamelin," he said, his voice barely audible above the din. As they descended the ramp, Eugene felt his skin prickling with increased intensity. The energy field around him seemed to react to the planet's atmosphere, creating small arcs of electricity that danced between his fingers. Stella's hair had taken on a life of its own, weaving complex patterns that shimmered with bioluminescence. They had barely set foot on Gamelin soil when Zax ushered them towards a heavily armored ground transport. "Quickly now," he urged, his eyes scanning the crowd for potential threats. Once inside the vehicle, Eugene let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. That was overwhelming, Stella finished for him, her hair gradually settling into a more subdued glow. As the transport began to move, weaving its way through the city's winding streets, Zax briefed them on the situation. The extremist factions have been gaining traction in recent weeks. They see your presence here as a threat to Gamelin purity. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the vehicle lurched violently to one side. Outside, a group of protesters had surged forward, attempting to block their path. "Evasive maneuvers," the driver called out, his hands flying over the controls. Suddenly, the navigation panel began to spark and smoke. Eugene realized with a start that his energy field was interfering with the vehicle's systems. "I can't control it," the driver shouted, panic evident in his voice. In that moment, Stella's eyes seemed to glow with an inner light. Her hair extended outward, forming a network of glowing tendrils that spread across the interior of the transport. "Left," she called out, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "Now right. Straight ahead. There's an opening." The driver, acting on instinct, followed her instructions. The transport weaved through the crowd with uncanny precision, narrowly avoiding a collision that seemed all but inevitable. As they broke free of the mob and sped towards the Gamelin High Council chambers, Zax looked at Stella with a mixture of awe and concern. "How did you do that?" Stella shook her head, her hair retracting to its normal length. I'm not sure. It was like I could see everything at once, every possible path." Before they could discuss it further, the transport came to a stop outside an imposing structure that seemed to defy gravity, its spiraling towers reaching towards the alien sky. "We're here," Zax announced, his tone grim. "Remember, you're about to address the planet's leadership. This could be our best chance to solidify the alliance between our peoples." As they exited the vehicle, Eugene's skin tingled with a new sensation. He turned to see a small group of figures breaking through the security line, their hands clutching strange, cylindrical objects. "Look out!" he shouted, instinctively throwing himself in front of Stella and Zax. The extremists hurled their devices, which shattered on impact, releasing a thick, greenish gas. Eugene braced himself for the worst, but instead of pain or disorientation, he felt a surge of energy course through his body. To everyone's amazement, the gas seemed to swirl around Eugene before dissipating harmlessly. Nearby Gamelin officials, who had begun to choke and stumble, suddenly found themselves able to breathe freely. "Incredible," Zax murmured, staring at Eugene with newfound wonder. "Your hybrid physiology. It neutralized the toxin." Security forces quickly subdued the attackers, and Eugene, Stella, and Zax were hurried into the council chambers. As they entered the vast, domed room, filled with row upon row of Gamelin dignitaries, Eugene felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. Stella squeezed his hand reassuringly, her hair beginning to pulse with a soft, calming light. As they took their positions at the center of the chamber, ready to begin their presentation, neither of them could shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger, more complex challenge than they had ever imagined. The eyes of two worlds were upon them, and as Eugene opened his mouth to speak, he knew that every word, every action from this point forward would shape the future of human-Gamelin relations. The true test of their abilities and the strength of their bond was about to begin. The true test of their abilities and the strength of their bond was about to face an unexpected challenge. As Eugene opened his mouth to address the Gamelin High Council, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Ambassador Zax's communicator chirped urgently, and his face paled as he listened to the incoming message. "We must evacuate immediately," Zax announced, his voice cutting through the rising panic in the room. "Unidentified ships have entered the system." Eugene and Stella exchanged a worried glance as they were quickly ushered out of the council chambers and into a waiting transport. The vehicle sped through the winding streets of the Gamelin capital, its occupants tense with apprehension. "What's happening?" Stella asked, her hair writhing with agitation. Zax's fingers danced across his communicator's screen. "A fleet of unknown origin has appeared on the outskirts of our system. They're not responding to hails, and they're moving towards Gamelin at an alarming speed." The transport veered sharply, heading towards a military spaceport on the outskirts of the city. As they approached, Eugene and Stella saw a sleek medical ship prepped for launch. "Change of plans," Zax explained, his voice tight. "We're evacuating you to our lunar facility. It's better equipped to handle any complications with your physiology." As they boarded the medical transport, Dr. Jerix joined them, his silver skin gleaming with nervous sweat. "I'll be monitoring your condition during the journey," he explained, gesturing to a bank of specialized equipment. The ship lifted off, quickly breaking through Gamelin's atmosphere. As they accelerated towards the planet's largest moon, Eugene felt a strange, tingling sensation coursing through his body. His skin began to emit a soft, pulsating glow. "Interesting," Dr. Jerix murmured, studying his instruments. "Your body seemed to be reacting to the increased radiation levels in space. It's as if your hybrid physiology is adapting in real time." Stella nodded, her eyes wide as she watched her hair extend into a complex network of glowing tendrils. I can feel the ship around us. It's like I'm connected to its system somehow. Before they could explore this new development further, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A deep, resonant voice filled the cabin, speaking in a language none of them recognized. After a moment, the ship's computer processed the transmission, providing a translation. Attention, vessels of Gamelin. We are the Zintians. We come seeking the human-Gamelin hybrid pair. Bring them to us for peaceful discourse, or we will be forced to take more direct action. Ambassador Zax's face hardened as he processed this new information. Pilot, divert course to the far side of the moon. There's a secure military installation there. As the medical transport changed direction, Eugene and Stella felt their bodies continuing to evolve. Eugene's energy field began to modulate, no longer interfering with the ship's systems, but instead seeming to enhance them. Stella's hair tendrils grew more complex, forming what appeared to be a neural network that allowed her to process vast amounts of data streaming from the ship's sensors. Dr. Jarrett's worked feverishly, adjusting his equipment to keep pace with their rapidly changing physiology. This is unprecedented, he muttered, his eyes wide with a mixture of scientific awe and concern. Your bodies are adapting to the space environment at an exponential rate. The medical transport touched down at the lunar military base, where they were immediately escorted to a specialized medical bay. As Dr. Jarrett's began a series of treatments to stabilize their condition, Ambassador Zax conferred with the base's military leadership. The Zintians have taken up positions around our orbital defense platforms, a grim-faced Gamelin general reported. They've effectively neutralized our primary line of defense without firing a shot. Zax nodded, his expression grave. And their technology? Far beyond ours, the general admitted. Initial scans suggest they possess incredible capabilities in genetic manipulation and hybridization. It's likely why they're so interested in Eugene and Stella. As the diplomats and military leaders debated their next move, Eugene and Stella underwent treatment in the medical bay. Their bodies continued to evolve, adapting to the alien environment in ways that defied explanation. Eugene discovered he could now control his energy output with precision, interfacing with Gamelin technology without causing disruptions. Stella's cognitive abilities expanded exponentially, her hair tendrils forming an intricate neural network that allowed her to process and analyze data at unprecedented speeds. Dr. Jarrett's, recognizing the potential risks of their unstable condition, worked tirelessly to develop a portable life support system. The system, integrated into specially designed suits, would allow Eugene and Stella to function normally in various environments while providing real-time medical data to the research team. As the hybrid couple tested their new suits and abilities, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security feeds showed a team of mercenaries materializing within the base, their advanced cloaking technology having bypassed the perimeter defenses. It's the Collector, Stella realized, her enhanced cognitive abilities allowing her to recognize patterns in the attacker's movements. They're here for us. Eugene's skin crackled with energy as he formed a protective barrier around them. Then let's show them why that was a mistake. As chaos erupted in the lunar base, Eugene and Stella found themselves at the center of a storm, their evolving abilities put to the ultimate test. The fate of multiple worlds hung in the balance as they prepared to face not only the Collector's forces, but also the mysterious Zintians waiting beyond the moon's horizon. Orbit, the lunar base trembled as the Zintian ships maintained their imposing presence just beyond the atmosphere. Eugene and Stella, their bodies still adapting to the alien environment, exchanged a determined look. They knew they had to act fast to protect not only themselves, but also the delicate balance of interspecies relations. We can't stay here, Eugene said, his voice tight with urgency. We're putting everyone at risk. Stella nodded, her glowing hair tendrils pulsing with activity as she processed the situation. Agreed. Where can we go that won't endanger more lives? Ambassador Zax, overhearing their conversation, stepped forward with a solution. There's a neutral space station in the asteroid belt. It's designed for sensitive diplomatic meetings. We could arrange a rendezvous with the Zynthians there. Dr. Jerix, who had been monitoring their vitals, interjected. I'll need to design specialized suits to maintain your physiological balance during the journey. Your bodies are still in flux. As the team worked feverishly to prepare for their departure, alarms blared once again. The Collector's forces had breached the lunar base's outer defenses. We need to move now, Zax shouted, ushering Eugene and Stella towards a waiting spacecraft. The couple donned their newly fabricated suits, marveling at the intricate systems designed to keep their evolving physiology stable. As they boarded the ship, Eugene's energy field crackled, interfacing seamlessly with the vessel systems. The spacecraft shot away from the lunar surface, weaving through a barrage of weapons fire from the Collector's ships. Stella's enhanced cognitive abilities allowed her to anticipate each attack, guiding their pilot through the chaos. As they cleared the moon's orbit, the vastness of space opened before them. The Zynthian fleet, a breathtaking array of bioluminescent vessels, parted to allow their ship passage. During the journey to the asteroid belt, Eugene and Stella's abilities continued to evolve. Eugene found he could manipulate the ship's energy systems with unprecedented precision, boosting their speed and efficiency. Stella's neural network expanded, allowing her to process vast amounts of data from the ship's sensors. Dr. Jerix worked tirelessly, adjusting their suits to compensate for each new change. Fascinating, he muttered, eyes wide as he studied the readouts. Your adaptability is beyond anything we've seen before. As they approached the space station, a massive structure nestled within the rocky expanse of the asteroid belt, tension mounted within the ship. They knew that this meeting could determine the fate of multiple worlds. The docking procedure went smoothly, and as the airlock cycled, Ambassador Zax turned to Eugene and Stella. Remember, we're here to negotiate. Your unique abilities may be our greatest asset or our greatest liability. Be cautious. The doors hissed open, revealing the station's sleek interior. As they stepped inside, Eugene's skin tingled with a new sensation. He turned to see tall, luminescent beings approaching from the opposite direction. The Zynthians moved with fluid grace, their bodies seeming to shimmer and shift with each step. Their leader, a being of mesmerizing beauty, fixed her multifaceted eyes on Eugene and Stella. "Welcome," she said, her voice resonating in a way that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. "I am High Emissary Zalara. We have much to discuss." As they moved towards the designated meeting area, Eugene's energy field reacted instinctively to the Zynthian's presence. A subtle, shimmering barrier formed around him, causing the alien delegates to step back in surprise. Stella's hair tendrils extended, seeking to interface with the station's systems. The action didn't go unnoticed by Zalara, whose eyes widened with what appeared to be excitement. "Fascinating," the High Emissary breathed. "Your hybrid forms are even more remarkable than we anticipated." As they settled into the meeting room, Zalara revealed the true purpose of their arrival. "We have long sought to perfect the art of genetic hybridization," she explained. "Your success represents a significant breakthrough, one we wish to study and potentially replicate." The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Security feeds flickered to life, showing the Collector's forces launching a coordinated attack on both the station and their escort ships. "How did they find us?" Zax exclaimed, rising from his seat. Eugene's energy manipulation abilities intensified in response to the threat. A protective barrier formed around the delegation, deflecting weapons fire as the Collector's mercenaries breached the station's outer defenses. Stella's enhanced cognitive abilities kicked into overdrive. Her eyes glowed as she interfaced with the station's systems, coordinating defense efforts against the attackers. The Zintians, caught off guard by the sudden violence, revealed their own formidable abilities. Their fluid bodies morphed into weapon-like appendages, engaging the mercenaries with surprising efficiency. High Emissary Zalara moved to protect Eugene and Stella, her body forming a protective cocoon around them as they made their way to a more secure area of the station. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Jerix noticed alarming changes in Eugene and Stella's vital signs. Their hybrid physiology is undergoing a rapid transformation, he shouted over the din of battle. The stress of the situation, combined with their proximity to the Zintians, is triggering an unprecedented surge in their abilities. As if in response to his words, Eugene's energy field expanded dramatically. The pulse of power interfered with the Collector's technology, disabling their weapons and communication devices. Stella's neural network expanded beyond the confines of her body, allowing her to take control of the station's defense systems with unparalleled precision. Turrets swiveled under her command, picking off the invaders with pinpoint accuracy. Through the maelstrom of battle, a familiar figure caught Eugene's eye. The Collector himself, attempting to escape in a small, high-speed craft. "Stella," Eugene called out, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "The Collector, he's getting away." Without a word, the hybrid couple combined their powers. Eugene projected a focused energy beam, overloading the escaping vessel's engines. Simultaneously, Stella used her enhanced control over the station's systems to deploy a tractor beam, capturing the Collector's ship in mid-flight. As the immediate threat subsided, Eugene and Stella felt the toll of their enhanced abilities. Their specialized suits struggled to maintain stability, alarms blaring as their vital signs fluctuated wildly. Dr. Jerix rushed to their side, initiating emergency medical procedures. "We need to stabilize them, now," he shouted, his silver skin glistening with exertion. High Emissary Zalara stepped forward, her luminescent form pulsing with an inner light. "Allow us to help," she offered, gesturing to her fellow Zintians. "Our medical technology may be able to stabilize their condition." As Eugene and Stella were rushed to the Zintian medical bay, Ambassador Zax found himself facing a new challenge. The potential for a three-way alliance between humans, Gamelons, and Zintians now lay before him, fraught with both danger and opportunity. In the advanced medical facility, Eugene and Stella's bodies began to stabilize under the alien care. As they drifted in and out of consciousness, they could hear the muffled voices of their allies discussing the future, a future that now seemed more complex and uncertain than ever before. As Eugene and Stella's condition stabilized under the advanced Zintian care, their consciousness gradually returned. The sterile, luminescent environment of the medical bay slowly came into focus, its alien design a stark contrast to the chaos they had just endured. Dr. Jerix hovered nearby, his silver skin reflecting the soft glow of the medical equipment. He conferred in hushed tones with a Zintian geneticist, their discussion punctuated by gestures toward the array of holographic displays surrounding the hybrid couple. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Jerix asked, noticing Eugene and Stella's alertness. Eugene flexed his fingers, feeling the familiar crackle of energy beneath his skin. "Better," he replied, his voice stronger than expected. "More. In control." Stella nodded in agreement, her hair tendrils undulating gently. "The chaos in my mind has subsided. I can think clearly again." The Zintian geneticist approached, her multifaceted eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and excitement. "Your hybrid physiology is truly remarkable," she said, her voice carrying the same mind-to-mind resonance as High Emissary Zalara's. "We've managed to stabilize the rapid changes, but your potential for further adaptation remains unprecedented." As Eugene and Stella absorbed this information, Ambassador Zax entered the medical bay, his expression a mixture of relief and purpose. "I'm glad to see you both recovering," he said. "We have much to discuss. Over the next few hours, Zax outlined his proposal for a joint research initiative between humans, Gamelons, and Xinthians. The plan centered around a new research facility on a neutral planet, where the three species could combine their expertise in hybrid technology and genetic manipulation. "And we want you both to be the primary subjects of study," Zax concluded, his gaze fixed on Eugene and Stella. The couple exchanged a long look, their newly stabilized abilities allowing for a deeper, almost telepathic connection. After a moment, Eugene spoke for both of them. "We understand the importance of what's happening here. If our participation can help advance interspecies cooperation, we're in." The journey to the neutral planet was uneventful, allowing Eugene and Stella time to acclimate to their evolved abilities. Upon arrival, they were greeted by a diverse team of scientists from all three species. The research facility, a marvel of combined technologies, sprawled across a lush, terraformed landscape. As the days passed, Eugene found himself interfacing with increasingly complex machinery. His energy manipulation abilities refined to the point where he could seamlessly integrate with systems from all three species. During one test, he successfully powered an entire wing of the facility using only his internal energy reserves. Stella's neural network continued to expand, granting her unprecedented analytical capabilities. She could process vast amounts of genetic data in real time, often identifying patterns and connections that even the most advanced AI systems missed. "It's like I can see the very building blocks of life," Stella explained to Dr. Jerix during one session. "Not just visually, but conceptually. I can trace the evolutionary paths, predict potential mutations." Their progress was not without its challenges. News of the breakthrough in replicating a stable version of Eugene and Stella's hybrid DNA spread rapidly, sparking both scientific excitement and societal unrest. Reports of anti-hybrid extremist attacks trickled in from across human, Gamelon, and Xinthian territories. The violence culminated in a series of coordinated strikes against research facilities and diplomatic outposts, causing widespread damage and loss of life. In response to the escalating crisis, security around the neutral planet facility was significantly increased. A joint protective perimeter was established, employing advanced technologies from all three species. Amidst this backdrop of scientific advancement and growing tension, Eugene and Stella found their relationship deepening. Their shared experiences and unique physiology created a level of intimacy beyond anything they had known before. One evening, as they watched the facility's three moons rise from the observation deck, Stella broached a subject that had been on both their minds. "Eugene," she began, her hair tendrils gently entwining with his fingers, "have you thought about children?" Eugene's skin tingled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I have," he admitted. "But given what we are now, what would that even mean?" Before they could discuss further, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Eugene's energy field instinctively flared to life as Stella's neural network connected to the security systems. "Intruders," Stella reported, her eyes glowing as she processed the incoming data. "They've breached the outer defenses." Security forces mobilized rapidly, their movements coordinated with a precision that spoke to the effectiveness of the trilateral cooperation. Eugene and Stella found themselves being ushered toward a secure area deep within the facility. As they moved through the corridors, the sounds of conflict grew closer. Energy weapons discharged, and the acrid smell of ozone filled the air. Eugene's power surged, ready to defend against any threat. Stella's hair tendrils twitched with nervous energy as she continued to monitor the situation. "They're heading straight for the Central Research Lab," she warned. "That's where they keep the replicated hybrid DNA," Eugene finished grimly. They exchanged a determined look, knowing that the fate of their potential future, and possibly the future of interspecies relations, hung in the balance. As the security team sealed the blast doors behind them, Eugene and Stella prepared themselves for whatever challenges lay ahead. The sound of explosions echoed through the facility, growing ever closer to their position. Eugene's skin crackled with nearly unleashed energy, while Stella's hair tendrils whipped about in agitation, processing data at lightning speed. "They're almost here," Stella whispered, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and tenacity. Persistence. In that moment, the extremists burst through the final set of blast doors. Eugene's energy field flared instinctively, creating a protective barrier around himself and Stella. The intruders, clad in sleek black armor, raised their weapons. "Stand down," a gruff voice commanded. A tall figure stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal the sharp features of a Gamelin male. "I am Kraz, and you will come with us." Eugene's eyes narrowed, his skin crackling with barely held back power. "I don't think so," he growled, preparing to unleash a devastating energy blast. But before he could act, a strange pulse rippled through the air. Eugene felt his power suddenly drain away, his energy field flickering and dying. He stumbled, falling to his knees as weakness overtook him. "Eugene!" Stella cried out, her hair tendrils whipping frantically. She reached for him, but in that moment of distraction, her connection to the facility's systems abruptly severed. Kraz smiled coldly, holding up a small device. "Energy disruptor," he explained, "specifically designed to neutralize your unique abilities." The extremists moved swiftly, securing Eugene and Stella. As they were being restrained, Kraz strode to a nearby console and began downloading data. "What do you want?" Stella demanded, struggling against her captors. Kraz turned, his eyes gleaming with fanatical intensity. "The future," he replied. "Your hybrid physiology is the key to creating the ultimate soldiers. With an army of engineered super beings, we can ensure the survival of pure species against the threat of unchecked hybridization." Eugene, still weakened, managed to lift his head. "You're insane," he muttered. "Hybridization isn't a threat. It's the next step in our evolution." Before Kraz could respond, a strange ripple passed through one of the lab's bulkheads. Suddenly, the seemingly solid wall transformed, revealing the luminescent form of High Emissary Zalara. The Zynthian's body expanded rapidly, engulfing several extremists in a suffocating mass. Weapons clattered to the floor as the surprised intruders found themselves immobilized. Taking advantage of the chaos, Eugene felt his power surge back. With a roar of effort, he released a massive electromagnetic pulse. The energy disruptor in Kraz's hand sparked and died, along with the rest of the extremist equipment. Stella, her connection to the facility restored, quickly took control. "Lockdown initiated," she announced, her eyes glowing as she interfaced with the security systems. Blast doors slammed shut throughout the complex, isolating pockets of intruders. Working in perfect synchronization, Eugene, Stella, and Zalara methodically contained the remaining extremists. Eugene's energy constructs herded them into position, while Stella's control of the facility's systems deployed stun fields and containment foam. Zalara's fluid body proved invaluable, slipping through small spaces to outmaneuver the increasingly desperate intruders. As the last of the extremists fell, Kraz found himself cornered. He snarled in defiance, reaching for a concealed weapon. Before he could use it, a tendril of Zalara's body wrapped around his arm, immobilizing him. "It's over, Kraz," Eugene said, his hand crackling with energy as he approached the captured leader. Suddenly, an alarm blared from a nearby medical console. Dr. Jerix's voice came over the intercom, urgent and concerned. "Eugene, Stella, report to the medical bay immediately. Your hybrid physiology is undergoing rapid, unexpected changes." Eugene and Stella exchanged worried glances. As the security team took custody of Kraz and the other extremists, the couple hurried to the medical bay, followed closely by Zalara. In the sterile white room, a team of human, Gamelin, and Zynthian medical experts huddled around displays showing wildly fluctuating energy patterns. What's happening to us? Stella asked, her voice tight with apprehension. Dr. Jerix looked up from a holographic readout, his silver skin reflecting the shifting lights of the medical equipment. The stress of the confrontation has triggered an acceleration in your hybrid evolution, he explained. Your bodies are adapting at an unprecedented rate. Eugene gasped as he felt a surge of energy course through him. Beside him, Stella's hair tendrils began to glow, pulsing in rhythm with the energy emanating from Eugene. Fascinating, a Xinthian geneticist murmured, studying the readings. Their energy patterns are beginning to synchronize and amplify each other. As the medical team worked frantically to stabilize the couple, Eugene reached out and took Stella's hand. The moment their fingers touched, a visible spark jumped between them. Both gasped as they felt a new level of connection, their powers intertwining in ways they had never experienced before. "This is incredible," Stella whispered, her mind racing with new sensations and possibilities. "I can feel your energy flowing through me, enhancing my neural network." Eugene nodded, equally awestruck. "And I can sense the data streams you're processing. It's like our abilities are merging, becoming something entirely new." Dr. Jerix frowned, studying the latest readings. While this development is potentially groundbreaking for our research, it poses significant health risks if not properly managed. We need to stabilize your condition before we can proceed with any further experiments, including the planned pregnancy. As the medical team adjusted their treatment protocols, Ambassador Zax entered the medical bay, his expression grave. "I've just finished conferencing with the human and Gamelin leadership," he announced. "This attack has exposed serious vulnerabilities in our security measures. We're implementing new protocols immediately and planning to relocate the entire hybrid research program to a more secure facility." Eugene and Stella, still adjusting to the strange new sensations coursing through their bodies, listened as Zax outlined plans for a galaxy-wide initiative to address the growing anti-hybrid sentiment. As the immediate crisis passed and their conditions stabilized, Eugene and Stella found themselves alone in a private recovery room. The facility around them hummed with increased activity as security measures were overhauled and preparations for relocation began. "What do you think this means for us?" Stella asked softly, her hair tendrils gently entwining with Eugene's fingers. "For our future, our family?" Eugene gazed out the window at the alien landscape beyond, his mind racing with possibilities and uncertainties. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they sat in contemplative silence, their newly enhanced connection thrumming between them, both Eugene and Stella knew that their journey of discovery was nowhere near the end. Whatever challenges lay ahead, their unique hybrid status would continue to play a crucial role in shaping the future of interspecies relations, and perhaps the very course of galactic evolution itself. As Eugene and Stella sat in contemplative silence, their newly enhanced connection thrumming between them, the facility around them burst into a flurry of activity. Alarms blared and the intercom crackled to life with urgent announcements. "Attention all personnel," Ambassador Zax's voice echoed through the corridors. "Initiating Protocol Omega. Prepare for immediate relocation." Eugene and Stella exchanged glances, their shared connection allowing them to sense each other's mix of apprehension and drive. Dr. Jerix entered their room, his silver skin reflecting the flashing emergency lights. "We need to move you to a secure transport," he said, his tone urgent but controlled. "Your evolving physiology requires constant monitoring, and we can't risk leaving you exposed during the relocation." As they made their way through the bustling facility, Eugene felt a surge of energy course through him. He instinctively reached out to steady Stella, who gasped as their powers intertwined once again. "It's getting stronger," Stella whispered, her hair tendrils pulsing with a soft glow. "I can sense the entire facility's systems through you." Eugene nodded, marveling at the newfound depth of their connection. "And I can feel the energy flowing through every circuit and conduit." It's overwhelming. They boarded a sleek, heavily armored transport ship. As the engines hummed to life, Dr. Jerix and his team of human, Gamelin, and Zintian experts surrounded them with an array of sophisticated monitoring equipment. The journey to their new home was a blur of tests, scans, and hushed conversations among the scientists. Eugene and Stella found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity, their bodies continuing to adapt and evolve in ways that both excited and unnerved their caretakers. Days later, they arrived at a remote planet on the edge of Zintian space. The new facility rose from the alien landscape like a shimmering mirage, its design a seamless blend of the three species' most advanced technologies. As they settled into their new quarters, Eugene and Stella underwent a barrage of comprehensive tests. Dr. Jerix and his Zintian colleague, Dr. Zyra, pored over the results with increasing excitement. "Remarkable," Dr. Zyra murmured, her translucent skin rippling with patterns of light. "Your hyperphysiology has reached a new equilibrium. Eugene, your energy manipulation abilities now extend to the subatomic level. And Stella, your neural network, it's expanded beyond the confines of your body." Stella concentrated, her eyes glowing as she reached out with her mind. Suddenly, the lights in the room dimmed and brightened in response to her thoughts. "I can interface with the facility's systems without any physical contact," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Eugene held out his hand, a sphere of pure energy coalescing above his palm. With a thought, he compressed it, the energy shifting and changing at a fundamental level. "I can feel the quantum structure," he marveled. "It's like I can reshape reality itself." As the days passed, Eugene and Stella worked tirelessly with the research team to understand and control their evolving abilities. Dr. Jerix and Dr. Zyra developed new protocols for the hybrid pregnancy experiment, taking into account the couple's recent physiological changes. Their routine was interrupted one morning by the arrival of Ambassador Zax, his usually composed features tight with concern. "We've received a communication from a previously unknown species," he announced. "They call themselves the Vortani, and they've expressed great interest in our hybrid research. Specifically, they've requested a meeting with you two." Eugene felt a ripple of unease from Stella through their connection. "Is that wise, given recent events?" she asked. Zax nodded gravely. "We've considered the risks, but this could be a crucial opportunity for expanding interspecies cooperation. We've arranged a summit on a neutral space station in their system. You'll be accompanied by a full security detail, of course." As they prepared for the journey, tension filled the air. The memory of Kraz and his extremists was still fresh in everyone's minds, and the idea of exposing Eugene and Stella to another potential threat caused great concern on the team. The day of departure arrived, and Eugene and Stella boarded the heavily armed transport ship. As they broke atmosphere and set course for the Vortani system, Eugene gazed out at the stars streaking past. "Whatever happens," he said softly, taking Stella's hand, "we face it together." Stella squeezed his hand, her hair tendrils gently entwining with his fingers. "Always," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. As they approached the Vortani system, an alert sounded on the bridge. The captain's voice came over the intercom, tense and controlled. "Long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures near the space station, initiating advanced scanning protocols." Eugene and Stella rushed to the bridge, their enhanced senses immediately picking up on the crew's growing unease. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive fleet of ships emerging from behind a gas giant. "By the stars," Stella breathed, her neural network interfacing with the ship systems. "There are thousands of them, far more than the Vortani disclosed." Ambassador Zax's holographic form appeared on the bridge, his expression grim. "Maintain your course," he instructed. "I'll attempt to ascertain their intentions through diplomatic channels." As the transport ship drew closer to the space station, The Vortani fleet began to move. Ships of various sizes and configurations took up positions around the station and the approaching vessel, creating a web of potential threats. Eugene felt his energy field intensify, responding to the rising tension. Beside him, Stella's eyes glowed as she processed vast amounts of tactical data. They focused on harmonizing their abilities, preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. The captain turned to them, his face a mask of professional calm. "We're receiving a transmission from the Vortani leadership," he reported. "They're requesting immediate communication with you two." Eugene and Stella exchanged a look, their shared connection humming with a mix of anticipation and drive. As they stepped forward to face this new and potentially dangerous first contact situation, the fate of the diplomatic mission, and perhaps the balance of power in the galaxy hung in the balance. Balance. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of white light engulfed the transport ship, momentarily blinding everyone on board. When the light faded, Eugene and Stella found themselves standing in an ornate chamber, their surroundings completely transformed. Gone was the familiar bridge of their ship. Instead, they stood on a polished floor that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Intricate patterns adorned the walls, pulsing with soft, ever-changing colors. The air itself felt different, carrying a faint, sweet scent unlike anything they had encountered before. Before they could fully process their new surroundings, a figure stepped forward from a group of aliens gathered at the far end of the chamber. The being was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that rippled like liquid metal. Its eyes, large and multifaceted, fixed upon Eugene and Stella with an intensity that was almost palpable. "Welcome," the alien said, its voice a melodious hum that seemed to resonate within their minds. "I am Supreme Arbiter Xylax of the Vortani. We have long awaited this meeting." Eugene and Stella exchanged a quick glance, their enhanced connection allowing them to share a moment of mutual surprise and caution. They noticed Ambassador Zax standing nearby, looking equally bewildered by the sudden change in circumstances. As Zax stepped forward to begin formal introductions, Xylax's gaze suddenly shifted, focusing intently on Eugene's lower body. The Vortani leader's multifaceted eyes widened, and a ripple of what appeared to be excitement passed through its liquid metal skin. "Forgive me," Xylax interrupted, cutting off Zax mid-sentence, "but I must inquire about the mysterious bulge in your suit." The alien gestured towards Eugene's midsection, its voice filled with undisguised curiosity. "What purpose does this serve?" A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Eugene felt a surge of embarrassment mixed with disbelief. Of all the potential topics for first contact, he never imagined this would be the focus. He glanced at Stella, who gave him a subtle nod of encouragement through their shared connection. Clearing his throat, Eugene began to explain. "Well, you see, it's part of human male anatomy. It's called genitalia. It's involved in our reproductive process." Xylax listened with rapt attention, its eyes growing impossibly wider. The other Vortani in the room leaned forward, clearly fascinated by this revelation. Eugene continued his impromptu biology lesson, describing the basics of human reproduction as diplomatically as possible. As he spoke, Stella's enhanced neural network picked up on a flurry of activity among the Vortani. She noticed several aliens who appeared to be scientists furiously recording data on shimmering holographic displays. Their movements were quick and excited, reminding her of researchers on the verge of a breakthrough. A realization dawned on Stella. This bizarre fixation on human anatomy might be more than mere curiosity. It could be the key to establishing peaceful relations with the Vortani. She gently squeezed Eugene's hand, signaling him to pause. "If I may," Stella interjected smoothly, addressing Xylax directly. "Your interest in our biology suggests a fascinating difference between our species. Perhaps we could propose a cultural exchange program focused on biological diversity?" This could be an opportunity for mutual learning and understanding. Xylax's skin rippled with patterns of light, a display that Stella interpreted as enthusiasm. Yes, the Vortani leader exclaimed. This is precisely why we sought this meeting. The Vortani reproduce through a complex spore system, and we have long wondered about the diversity of life forms in the galaxy. Your proposal is most welcome. The tension in the room dissipated as quickly as it had formed. Ambassador Zax, recovering his composure, stepped forward to formalize the agreement. In light of this shared desire for knowledge and cooperation, the Vortani are hereby invited to join our interspecies alliance, he announced. As the diplomats began to hash out the details, Eugene and Stella found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Vortani scientists approached them, eager to begin their studies. The couple answered questions and submitted to non-invasive scans, marveling at the advanced technology the Vortani possessed. Hours passed in a blur of scientific exchange and diplomatic negotiations. The Vortani fleet, once a looming threat, now stood down. Ships began to disperse, returning to their regular positions as the immediate crisis passed. As the initial excitement settled, Eugene and Stella found a moment alone. They stood by a large viewport, gazing out at the star-filled expanse of space. The Vortani homeworld hung in the distance, a swirling orb of blues and greens unlike any planet they had seen before. Well, Eugene said with a wry smile, that wasn't quite how I expected first contact to go. Stella laughed softly, her hair tendrils pulsing with a gentle glow. Who would have thought your anatomy would be the key to galactic diplomacy? As they shared a moment of levity, both felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Their unique status as hybrids had once again played a crucial role in shaping interspecies relations. The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities they had never imagined. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one that would challenge them in ways they couldn't yet foresee, and ultimately lead them back to where their journey began.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.